Chapter 424. The person who spoke was the boss of a small gang. He did not have much authority, and there were only a few hundred people in his gang. However, he was fortunate enough to attend the National Mafia Tea Party. When Yun Jian appeared just now, the person felt a sense of familiarity. Originally, a small gang like his wasn't qualified to participate in the National Mafia Tea Party, but he relied on his connections to force his way in. He had only caught a few glimpses of Yun Jian from afar. He had found Yun Jian familiar when she appeared. He thought for a while, and suddenly recalled. Wasn't she the boss of Falcon Hall, Slaying Luo? Her? Falcon Hall's new boss? She's the woman named Slaying Luo? Really? I heard that a mysterious man had annihilated the #1 gang in the northern region, the Green Tiger Gang, for Falcon Hall's boss, Slaying Luo. She's just a woman who relied on a man to get to where she is now. Not necessarily. She's not to be trifled with. Everyone present began to talk among themselves. Their words were filled with deep admiration for Yun Jian, but there were also some who snorted at her. No one had expected Falcon Hall's new boss, Slaying Luo, to be so young. Even Su Zhoujing and Yin Tianlei could not help but take a deep breath. When the Flying Passage members heard that Yun Jian was Falcon Hall's boss, Slaying Luo, they all ran over to surround Yun Jian. Given the current hostility between Flying Passage and Falcon Hall, the Flying Passage members would not hold back now that Yun Jian's identity had been exposed. You're Falcon Hall's boss, Slaying Luo? Su Zhoujing could not help but re-evaluate Yun Jian. He changed his tone, and walked up to Yun Jian with a frown, but his attitude had changed drastically. However, due to the territorial dispute between Flying Passage and Falcon Hall, Su Zhoujing was not in a good mood, even if he did not look at Yun Jian with that mocking gaze. She was surrounded by her brothers from Flying Passage. One of Su Zhoujing's men was even pointing a gun at her. However, she faced Su Zhoujing fearlessly and did not panic at all. Congratulations, you guessed right. Yun Jian's eyelids didn't even twitch as she said this directly. After a pause, she added coldly, unfortunately, there's no prize for guessing correctly. Su Zhoujing frowned. He suddenly looked at Yun Jian with disdain, as if he was looking at a dead person. He had been eyeing Falcon Hall's downtown area for a long time, and had wanted to take it for himself, but Falcon Hall had refused to let go. Falcon Hall was ranked near the bottom among all the gangs in Jia province, and Flying Passage was the second largest gang in the province. Therefore, Su Zhoujing flew into a rage out of humiliation when he failed to take over. He sent a sniper to kill Falcon Hall's boss, and in the end, annihilated Falcon Hall. However, Su Zhoujing did not know that the sniper he sent had targeted the wrong person. Therefore, Su Zetian took a bullet for Yun Jian for nothing. Since you're here, don't think of leaving. Su Zhoujing suddenly smiled sinisterly. He clapped his hands, and a sinister smile appeared on his face. Su Zhoujing had never believed in rumors, especially after seeing Yun Jian in person. Su Zhoujing believed that she was just a woman who spread her legs and relied on men to get to where she was now. After Su Zhoujing clapped his hands, another group of people rushed out from the back of the banquet and surrounded Yun Jian in layers. When the crowd saw this, they did not even dare to make a sound. However, everyone only had one thought in mind. This woman named Luo Sha dared to challenge Flying Passage alone. She was done for. Chapter 425. Haha, wipe out Flying Passage. You think you can do it alone? Su Zhoujing laughed when he heard Yun Jian say she wanted to wipe out his gang for the second time. It was a mocking and contemptuous laugh. Clearly, Yun Jian had come alone and boasted that she wanted to wipe out Flying Passage. In the eyes of Su Zhoujing and everyone else present, it was unrealistic. Even the biggest gang in Jia province could not do anything to Flying Passage. She was just a little brat. Not only had she come alone, she even wanted to wipe out Flying Passage? That was more unbelievable than dinosaurs coming back to life. I alone am enough to wipe out Flying Passage. Yun Jian laughed just as arrogantly. However, Su Zhoujing was really pushed to the edge when he heard that. No one would be able to take it if someone continued to act so arrogantly in front of him. Moreover, Su Zhoujing was the boss of Taizhou City's black market. Su Zhoujing was truly enraged to be mocked by an underage girl in front of so many people. His sinister face contorted. His bald head coupled with his tightly furrowed brows made him look repulsive. Kill. Kill. Kill this bitch for me. Damn it. She has a death wish. How dare she behave so atrociously in my territory? Su Zhoujing pointed at Yun Jian and shouted at his men who had formed a circle around Yun Jian. Yes, sir. Su Zhoujing's men answered. Tisk tsk tsk. However, before Su Zhoujing's men could do anything to Yun Jian, they heard a series of noises. Thump thump. Following the noises, Su Zhoujing's men felt a sharp pain in their knees. The next second, they were all kneeling on the ground. They had not attacked yet. A large number of them had already fallen. However, this group of Su Zhoujing's subordinates who were kneeling on the ground all had one thing in common. Their knees were pierced deeply by a very small blade, forcing everyone to kneel on the ground at the same time, as if their legs were paralyzed or directly fell to the ground. When the blade pierced deep into their knees, excruciating pain spread throughout their bodies. Before Su Zhoujing's subordinates could make a move, they had all fallen to the ground and were howling in pain. This scene scared the hell out of everyone. Everyone saw that the blades that had pierced into the knees of Su Zhoujing's men had been shot out by Yun Jian. Ah, boss, this blade is poisonous. We can't stand up. One of Su Zhoujing's men who had fallen down shouted desperately. They only felt that their bodies were weak. After being stabbed by the blades, they didn't even have the strength to stand up. What was going on? Everyone was terrified. Then, they all turned to look at Yun Jian. However, Yun Jian pursed her lips slightly and revealed a contemptuous smile in front of everyone. She even knew how to poison him. Moreover, the way he threw the blade was exactly the same as the assassins in the movies. Everyone looked at Yun Jian in horror, as if they had seen the Grim Reaper. No wonder she was so confident. The blades in her hands were laced with poison. Once they pierced someone, that person would instantly go limp and would not even have the strength to stand up. Yun Jian smirked when she saw that Su Zhoujing's men were already wailing and howling. These flying blades had been soaked in Qing Yu's poison. Once the blades grazed the body and came into contact with the blood in the body, the person would instantly go limp and would not even have the strength to stand up. This woman has a trick up her sleeve. Zhou Jie, shoot her. Quick. Kill her. Su Zhoujing shouted in horror. He quickly ordered the gun-wielding subordinate beside him, clearly shocked by Yun Jian's actions. Before he could finish, Yun Jian's leisurely voice rang out again. It's time for the game to end. Since Flying Passage dares to target Falcon Hall, you'll have to pay the price. Chapter 426. As he spoke, Yun Jian's figure had already flashed. Su Zhoujing's gun-wielding subordinate, Zhou Jie, listened to Su Zhoujing's words and quickly grabbed the pistol and aimed at Yun Jian again. But in the blink of an eye, where was Yun Jian? Gone. I'm here. Suddenly, the girl's light voice came from behind. Zhou Jie's heart tightened. He grabbed the pistol in horror and turned around. But just as he turned around, he heard a chi sound, and a blade had already pierced his leg. His body went soft in an instant, and Zhou Jie fell straight to the ground like a puddle of mud. Yun Jian's speed just now was so fast that it could not be captured by the naked eye. Everyone present was horrified, especially Su Zhoujing. He watched in horror as Yun Jian stabbed the blade into Zhou Jie's leg, and then Zhou Jie fell to the ground. The pistol in Zhou Jie's hand also slipped to the ground. Su Zhoujing's mouth was wide open. His shock at this time could no longer be described with words. Su Zhoujing's group of subordinates all fell to the ground at this time, and no one could still stand and look at Yun Jian. Even Yin Tianlei, who was born in a family of arms and was used to seeing the world, could not help but tremble at this time. This girl was not human at all. This kind of strength, this kind of skill. She was not like the woman in the rumors who relied on men to get to the top. What? Yun Jian continued to maintain her slightly restrained smile. She looked at Su Zhoujing, and the corner of her mouth was filled with a smile that made everyone present feel creepy. With a paw sound, Yun Jian did not look at the ground. She stretched out her foot and stomped forward, stepping on the pistol that Zhou Jie had just slid to the ground. With a sudden stomp, Yun Jian's foot was slightly stronger, and the pistol was hooked by Yun Jian's foot and bounced up. This jump happened to be at the height of Yun Jian's hanging hand. She only needed to reach forward and grab the handle of the pistol. At this moment, Yun Jian's actions were more like a demon from hell. Her movements were extremely smooth, as if she had practiced it countless times. Su Zhouzhen couldn't help but tremble. He no longer dared to treat Yun Jian as an ordinary girl, or a woman who relied on men to get to the top. He even began to regret treating Yun Jian as that kind of woman. At this moment, Yun Jian skillfully fiddled with the pistol. She fiddled with the pistol out of habit, and pointed the muzzle at Su Zhouzhen. "How do you want to die?" Yun Jian narrowed her eyes with a smile. Her words carried a frightening evil intent. Su Zhouzhen, who witnessed Yun Jian snatching the gun and pointing the muzzle at him, trembled all over his body. He was so scared that his face turned pale. All of Su Zhouzhen's men were defeated by Yun Jian. Although he had some martial arts, judging from Yun Jian's skills just now, his little bit of martial arts was not enough at all. However, Su Zhouzhen was not a person who would wait for death. His face twisted and he quickly threatened, "You can't kill me. If you kill me, then my brother will definitely avenge me. Do you know who my brother is? He's a member of the kosher mercenaries. If you kill me, you'll die." This was Su Zhouzhen's trump card, and Su Zhouzhen would only use this trump card when his life was threatened. However, after hearing Su Zhouzhen's words, Yun Jian's hand paused. She drew an arc. "Oh, Su Zhouzhen actually has a brother who works for the kosher mercenaries?" The kosher mercenaries were popular all over the world, so Yun Jian was not surprised that she could meet members of the kosher mercenaries wherever she went. Chapter 427. Everyone's eyelids twitched at Su Zhouzhen's words. Even Yin Tianlei could not help the twitch of his lips. Su Zhouzhen's brother was from the kosher mercenaries. If Su Zhouzhen had not encountered a life-threatening situation, he would not have mentioned it, and the others would not have known. Now that they knew, however, it was impossible for them to remain calm. The kosher mercenaries. Those present were either in the underworld or related to the black market, so they were familiar with the kosher mercenaries. Such a powerful organization of assassins and mercenaries was one of the top organizations in the world. Other than an Hun group, there was no one else who could compete with it. Su Zhouzhen's brother was from the kosher mercenaries. This was enough to shock everyone. Just like how Su Zetian was a member of the kosher mercenaries, anyone who belonged to the kosher mercenaries would be protected by the kosher mercenaries. Back when Su Zetian made a bet with the foreigners, he had invited the kosher mercenaries to help him. Yun Jian had just been reborn then, and Snake Lizard had come to Longmen City, using that as an excuse. Since Su Zhouzhen's brother was a member of the kosher mercenaries, it meant that his brother could also seek help from the kosher mercenaries. In other words, as long as he was a member of the kosher mercenaries, he would have the support of the kosher mercenaries, the mercenary organization that was renowned throughout the world. Looking at the people around him who panicked when they heard him say that his brother was a member of the kosher mercenaries, Su Zhouzhen felt himself regaining his composure. When Su Zhouzhen turned to look at Yun Jian, and saw that there was no fear or panic on her face, he was stupefied. "It's the kosher mercenaries. Aren't you afraid?" Su Zhouzhen asked Yun Jian indignantly. He did not believe that Yun Jian was not even afraid of the kosher mercenaries. Scared, Yun Jian raised her eyebrows. She seemed to have heard the funniest joke in the world. She chuckled and then pursed her lips. "Your brother's code name?" Yun Jian's smile faded as her lips curled up. Her eyes narrowed into slits as she asked with interest. Su Zhouzhen thought that Yun Jian did not know the might of the kosher mercenaries. He even exaggerated. "His name is Leopard Head. In the kosher mercenaries, he can be ranked in the top 1,000. As he spoke, Su Zhouzhen raised his head, as if he was showing off something incredible to Yun Jian. His bald head could not help but look proud. Yun Jian was really amused by Su Zhouzhen. She chuckled softly. Being ranked in the top 1,000 of the kosher mercenaries meant that he could hold his own in Country Z. However, Su Zhouzhen's actions were like bragging about how powerful his brother Mouse was in front of Tiger. "I don't remember when being ranked in the top 1,000 of the kosher mercenaries was considered a powerful person. Yunjian stopped laughing. She stretched out her hand and gently brushed away the hair that was hanging down. Her lips curled up slightly as she spoke. My kosher mercenaries? The group latched onto the 6 words that Yunjian had uttered. To be able to use the words my kosher mercenaries. Other than the boss of the kosher mercenaries, only the higher-ups of the kosher mercenaries had such qualifications. She was also a member of the kosher mercenaries. Furthermore, she was. Chapter 428. You're also a member of the kosher mercenaries? Su Zhoujing shouted in despair. Su Zhoujing's biggest trump card was his brother in the kosher mercenaries. Whenever he was in trouble, his brother would always be there to protect him. In turn, Su Zhoujing was indirectly protected by the kosher mercenaries. Because of this, Su Zhoujing's flying passage was already ranked as the 2nd largest gang in Jia province. What do you think? Yunjian narrowed her eyes. She twirled the gun in her hand and pointed it at Su Zhoujing. Alright, enough with the nonsense. But I have to thank you. If you didn't tell me, I probably wouldn't have known that the kosher mercenaries have a useless brother like your brother. Yunjian closed one of her eyes. She laughed maniacally and narrowed her eyes at Su Zhoujing. No, don't kill me. I was wrong, don't kill me. After realizing that Yunjian was not afraid that his brother was a member of the kosher mercenaries, Su Zhoujing immediately realized that Yunjian might really be a member of the kosher mercenaries. She might even be a high-ranking member of the kosher mercenaries. Su Zhoujing was in a mess. He suddenly turned around and ran forward as if he was running for his life. Seeing Su Zhoujing running away in a frenzy, the crowd felt that it was unrealistic. Su Zhoujing was the boss of the flying passage in Taizhou City. In spite of it, he was forced into this state by Yin Jian. Yin Tianlei knew that anything could happen if he did not step up now. So he quickly said to Yun Jian, "You're right. Hello, young friend. I'm from the Yin family's firearms family. I wonder if you can give me some face and spare brother Su this time?" Yin Tianlei's words made Yun Jian's hand that was about to pull the trigger pause. Yin Tianlei was delighted. He thought that he had convinced Yun Jian, who knew that in the next second, there would be a loud bang. The gun in Yun Jian's hand emitted a wisp of green smoke, but she didn't have any extra expression on her face. Bang! A crisp sound came from afar. Su Zhoujing, who was running away in a panic, was hit in the heart by a bullet and died on the spot. Yun Jian's marksmanship was extremely fast and accurate. There wasn't even the slightest bit of deviation. Everyone looked at Yun Jian in horror. They watched as she gently raised her hand and put away the pistol. She turned to Yin Tianlei, whose face instantly turned pale, and said loudly, "Give you face? Who are you? Why should I give you face?" Su Zhoujing had to die. Su Zetian had almost lost his life. Not to mention that Su Zetian had blocked the attack for himself. What Su Zhou wanted was his own life. Yun Jian had once said that she would kill anyone who wanted her life first. Su Zhoujing's death meant that flying passage was no more. After all, a gang without a leader was the easiest to take over. Yin Tianlei's pale face was drained of blood. He wasn't the only one. Even those who had been in the underworld for years, or had plenty of experience, were completely stunned when they saw how decisive Yun Jian was in killing someone. She showed no signs of panic after killing someone, as if killing someone was just a simple meal. Was she really just a teenage girl? Yun Jian merely sneered at the terrified expressions of the people around her. She wasn't in a hurry to leave. Instead, she said arrogantly, "I'm never careless when it comes to killing. If Flying Passage dares to mess with Falcon Hall, then they'll have to pay the price. Listen up. If anyone dares to lay a finger on Falcon Hall in the future, Flying Passage will be your escape route." At this time, Su Zifan had just finished nursing Su Zetian and left, and Su Zetian's wife had been staying by his side to serve him. It was the first time that Su Zetian's wife, Yun Jian, met her. Her name was Lin Wanru. She was also in her 40s, but she looked gentle and virtuous, like a lady from a scholarly family. Although Su Zetian was a gangster, he loved his wife dearly. In this lifetime, he only had Lin Wanru as his wife, and they only had one son, Su Haokol. In the gang, Su Zetian rarely allowed his wife, Lin Wanru, to come into contact with the black market. He protected his wife very well. There were not many people in the world who could do what Su Zetian did. Chapter 430. Just lie down. You don't have to get up, Yun Jian said with a wave of her hand. It was then that Su Zetian's urge to sit up was halted. Lin Wanru helped her husband lie back down considerately. Thank you, Sister Jian. Su Zetian had heard some stories while lying in bed these days. For example, it was Yun Jian who had saved his life. It was also Yun Jian who had gone to Flying Passage alone to wipe out his gang to avenge him. The gratitude in Su Zetian's heart couldn't be described with words. Back when Yun Jian asked for Falcon Hall, Su Zetian was still hesitant. Now, however, he would die a horrible death if he had second thoughts. Yun Jian had really led Falcon Hall out of Longmen City. Falcon Hall was now the second largest gang in Zhe province. They were replacing the Sky Bridge gang. You don't have to thank me, Yun Jian said faintly. In spite of it, Su Zetian could feel her sincerity. Yun Jian did not know how to express herself, but she would use her actions to tell others and Su Zetian that she had taken him as one of her own. Yun Jian had always been protective of her own people. As long as someone offended her people, she would get rid of them as soon as possible. Rest well for the next few days. Go back to Falcon Hall after you've recovered, Yun Jian said. Yes, Su Zetian nodded heavily as he lay on the bed. He was accompanied by his wife, Lin Wanru, to Falcon Hall's headquarters today to look for Su Zifan to take care of him. Yun Jian had operated on him and stitched up the wound well. Su Zetian could basically walk with the help of others now, but his wound would not be torn apart as long as he did not move too much. Rest well then. I've passed your recent work to Duan Lei. I'll be away for a while before the new year, and we'll be back after that. Yun Jian had arranged everything in an orderly manner. After saying that, she waited for Su Zetian to respond again before she turned around and left. Walking out of Falcon Hall's headquarters, someone suddenly caught up to her and called out to her. Yun Jian turned to see Lin Wanru jogging to catch up to her. Little girl, your name is Yun Jian, right? Thank you. Thank you for saving my husband. Although Lin Wanru was already in her 40s, she still looked very young. It was not an exaggeration to think that she was a young woman in her 20s or 30s. It was hard to imagine that this gentle, virtuous, and young-looking woman was Su Haokole's biological mother. I know my husband thanked you just now, but I still want to say thank you to you personally. Lin Wanru looked at Yun Jian sincerely. Yun Jian's pursed lips suddenly relaxed. She smiled slightly and responded to Lin Wanru's words. You're welcome. After returning from Falcon Hall, Yun Jian did not go home. She went to Lan Su's place first to inform him that she would not be coming back these few days before going to Qing Yu's house. When she went to Qing Yu's house today, she was the only one at home. As for her brother, Yun Yi, Yun Jian guessed that he had probably gone for tutoring. Yun Yi was a studious person, so he would go for tutoring during the winter break to improve his grades. Qing Yu ran to open the door and smiled when she saw Yun Jian. Sister Jian, you're here? Are you done packing? Yun Jian asked. I'm ready. I'm ready to go anytime. Qing Yu shook herself like she was relaxed and answered with a grin. On Qing Yu's side, Yun Jian had already found an excuse. Now, Yun Jian and Qing Yu were in a Ferrari sports car heading to the nearest airport. Chapter 431. The headquarters of the Kosha mercenaries was located on a mysterious island in Country M. As it was an internationally renowned mercenary organization, the location of its headquarters was well hidden. There was no direct bus to the headquarters of the Kosha mercenaries. Even if there was a transfer, there was no way to get there. Even from Country M to the island where the headquarters of the Kosha mercenaries was located, one had to cross a huge ocean to reach the island where the headquarters of the Kosha mercenaries was located. In her past life, Yun Jian had always flown a private helicopter back to the headquarters of the Kosha mercenaries when she returned. It was just that those old fellows thought that something had happened to her, and Yun Jian had not shown up for so long. She did not want to return in a high-profile manner. She wanted to catch them off guard. After buying a flight ticket to Country M at the airport of Hutua Mountain, which was closest to Longmen City, Yun Jian sat in the departure lounge of the airport and waited. Qingyu went to buy snacks while Yun Jian sat on the bench in the departure lounge with her eyes closed leisurely. There were not many people waiting to board the plane at the airport. In 1998, the airport was quite expensive. Ordinary people rarely took planes, so there were only a few types of people waiting to board the plane. There were mature white-collar workers in suits and leather shoes, well-dressed ladies, and some overseas students. In earlier years, people would usually travel by train instead of by plane. Yun Jian sat in the airport waiting for her flight when a sharp female voice suddenly rang in her ears. "Ah, you bumped into me. Do you have eyes? Oh my God. You even knocked my bag off. My bag is from Chanel. Can you afford to pay for it?" Yun Jian's eyes opened a little. She saw a rich lady in her 20s or 30s bending down to pick up a branded bag in the crowd and scolding an 18 or 19-year-old girl in a floral dress. "Yes, I'm sorry." The girl in the floral dress was startled and bowed to the rich lady, looking a little shaken. Yun Jian lost her interest at once with a glance. Naturally, other people's matters had nothing to do with her. Qingyu came running back with a bucket of popcorn and passed it to Yun Jian with a fawning grin. "Sister Jian, try it. It's delicious. I just queued up for a long time." Yun Jian narrowed her eyes and curled her lips slightly. She reached out to take one and tasted it. At this moment, the loudspeaker in the departure hall sounded. "Attention please, passengers. The plane to Country M's K City is about to take off. Please proceed to the ticketing area to board the plane." A beautiful female voice sounded from the loudspeaker. Yun Jian carried her backpack and boarded the plane together with Qingyu, who was carrying popcorn. They boarded the plane according to the order, and Qingyu sat close to the window. It was a row of 3 seats with Yun Jian sitting in the middle. There was an empty seat beside her. Yun Jian closed her eyes and rested for a while. At this moment a hurried ding-ding-ding sound was heard. Yun Jian felt something heavy hit her thigh. Opening her eyes slightly, she saw a girl in a floral dress speaking to her apologetically. "My luggage accidentally bumped into you just now. Sorry, are you okay?" "I'm fine," Yun Jian answered with a press of her lips. The girl in the floral dress was the one who had been scolded by the rich lady in the departure hall just now. Hearing Yun Jian's reply, the girl in the floral dress kept quiet. Chapter 432. Along the way, Yun Jian did not speak to the girl in the floral dress who sat on her right. The atmosphere was strangely strange. It was a 24-hour flight, so all 3 meals a day were served on the plane. By the time they got off the plane, it was already the next morning. Due to the time difference between Country M and Country Z, Yun Jian had boarded the plane yesterday evening. Now that 24 hours had passed, it was already morning in Country M K City. After they got off the plane, Yun Jian and Qingyu changed buses. They were going to the harbor and take a boat out to the sea to reach the island closest to the Kosha mercenaries' headquarters. They would then take a yacht back. The Kosha mercenaries' headquarters was not a place that anyone could visit. In her past life, Yun Jian had flown a helicopter directly. Now that she planned to go back in a low-profile manner, she would have to go through a lot of twists and turns. Just as Yun Jian and Qingyu boarded the bus to the harbor, a surprised female voice came from behind them. "Hey, are you two going to the harbor as well?" The female voice sounded pleasantly surprised. Yun Jian turned around and saw the girl in the floral dress whom they had met on the plane. The girl in the floral dress was looking at Yun Jian and Qingyu in surprise, as if she had met a fellow countryman in another country and realized that they were traveling together. "Yeah, we're going to the harbor." Before Yun Jian could speak, Qingyu answered for Yun Jian. "What a coincidence. Can we go all the way?" "Hee, I'm Hua Meiling. What about you two?" The girl named Hua Meiling asked excitedly. "I'm Qingyu, she's Yun Jian." Qingyu answered on behalf of Yun Jian. They were considered familiar with each other now. On the bus to the harbor, Qingyu and Hua Meiling's laughter could be heard. Yun Jian would chime in occasionally as well. As they chatted, Hua Meiling told them about herself. She was going to the harbor to find her friends who had arrived there before them. They had decided to go to Heifei Island for a vacation. Hearing that Hua Meiling was going to Heifei Island, Yun Jian's eyes flashed. Hafei Island was a sacred vacation spot in M Nation. At the same time, it was the closest island to the Kosha mercenaries' headquarters. Yunjian and Qingyu had to pass by Hafei Island to take the yacht back to the Kosha mercenaries' island. After taking the bus for 2 hours, they arrived at the harbor. As soon as she got out of the car, a group of young men and women in their late teens came over to greet Hua Meiling. "They are my friends." Hua Meiling introduced them to Yunjian and Qingyu. Hua Meiling then introduced Yunjian and Qingyu to her friends. "This is Qingyu, and this is Yunjian. We bumped into each other on the way, and it just so happens that we are both going to Hafei Island. So let's go together." "Hello, two little beauties. My name is Zhang Ziyuan. Can I be your friend?" Hee. A handsome young man of about 18 or 19 walked over to greet Yunjian and Qingyu with a grin. Someone slapped Zhang Ziyuan from the side and teased, "Ziyuan, get lost. Your real girlfriend is still here, and you dare to tease her little sister? Are you tired of living?" Haha. Hua Meiling's group of friends immediately started laughing noisily. "They're just like that. Don't mind them," Hua Meiling said to Yunjian and Qingyu with a smile. "It's fine." Yunjian narrowed her eyes and looked at the ground, feeling an unfriendly gaze on her and Qingyu. From the corner of her eyes, she saw an elegantly dressed, sweet-looking girl standing behind the laughing group, glaring at Yunjian and Qingyu with disgust. Chapter 433. Yunjian had experienced this gaze countless times, be it in her previous life or after her rebirth, so she ignored it. "Right, it's Sis Yunjian and Sis Qingyu's first time here for a vacation, right? Do you want me to be your guide?" Zhang Ziyuan, who was done fooling around with his friends, went to Yunjian and Qingyu to ask. Even the way he addressed them had become more intimate. She had heard from Hua Meiling that her group of friends were studying at a university in K City in Country M. Hua Meiling had come here alone this time to travel. As Zhang Ziyuan and his friends who had been studying here for a long time, they naturally felt like locals welcoming outsiders. "No need." Yunjian pressed her lips together and declined decisively. Although Zhang Ziyuan had struck up a conversation with both Yunjian and Qingyu just now, he was more inclined toward Yunjian. Therefore, he was taken aback when Yunjian rejected him so decisively. So there are times when our K University's top students get rejected by girls too, a boy beside them commented coincidentally. After that, Yunjian could clearly feel Fan Weiwei's murderous gaze on her. At this time, the group of people also realized that what the boy said just now was too inappropriate. Moreover, Zhang Ziyuan's real girlfriend Fan Weiwei was right beside them. How dare he say that? In spite of it, Zhang Ziyuan did not mind at all. He even invited Yunjian and Qingyu again, only to be rejected by Yunjian once more. The more unobtainable something was, the more he wanted it. Zhang Ziyuan's interest in Yunjian was piqued. The group boarded the cruise ship to Hafei Islet at the harbor, each with their own thoughts. Hafei Islet was a famous scenic spot, so it was crowded with people. "Sister Jian, are we going back to the organization directly or?" When they arrived at Hafei Islet, Qingyu went to Yunjian and asked softly, while Hua Meiling and the others were admiring the scenery. "Just go back," Yunjian answered without hesitation. She was not here for a vacation, so there was no need for her to go sightseeing with Hua Meiling and her friends. Just as Yunjian said that, Hua Meiling, who was walking in front, called out to them. "Yunjian, Qingyu, come quick. What are you standing there for?" Yunjian narrowed her eyes and caught up to them with Qingyu. The island of Hafei Island was very vast. There was an area with a beach. Since it was winter, there were not many people swimming in the sea. It was not that there were none. Yunjian and Qingyu wanted to leave as soon as they arrived. But Hua Meiling and her friends were already having fun on the beach. At this moment, the sound of a gunshot rang out beside everyone's ears. Everyone was taken aback. Then they saw a huge cruise ship coming ashore. On the side of the cruise ship, there was a unique skull imprinted on it. That was the symbol of the Kosha mercenaries. Yunjian's eyes twitched as she pressed her lips together, without saying a word. Hua Meiling's confused voice came from the side. "Huh, what was that sound just now?" This cruise ship is so weird. Why is there a skull on it? At this moment, the stairs on the cruise ship reached the ground, and a man in strange clothes walked down with a Browning pistol in his hand. There was a large group of people following behind him. These people had unique skulls printed on their wrists. At this moment, when everyone standing on the beach saw the man, who suddenly appeared with a pistol in his hand, they were so scared that they screamed one after another. "Ah, gun! He has a gun!" Someone exclaimed. But before the man could finish screaming, he was killed by the man holding the Browning pistol with a bang. Life was worthless. That was how the saying went. Hua Meiling and her friends paled in fright. Chapter 434. The man who had screamed just now was killed by the man with the gun. Hua Meiling and the rest had never seen anything like this before. They covered their mouths in fear, not daring to make a sound. The crowd was already in a frenzy. Some of them reacted quickly and turned to run. Bang, bang, bang. The man with the Browning pistol fired mercilessly at the fleeing group. Screams kill. Run kill. For a moment, everyone was dumbfounded by the sudden turn of events. They were overwhelmed by fear in the next second. Who was this man? How could he kill so brazenly? Everyone was clamoring in their hearts. At the same time, they were regretting why they had appeared here today. The gun in the man's hand was a pistol. A real gun. He had shot and killed someone. "Everyone, if you run away again, don't blame my bullets for being blind," the man shouted with the Browning pistol in his hand. He shot and killed several foreigners. It was as if killing was as simple as eating and sleeping to him. "Devil," Hua Meiling and the rest muttered in their hearts. Then they began to tremble in fear. The man with the gun had spoken in English, but Hua Meiling, Yun Jian, and Qingyu did not have a language barrier. Not long after, everyone present began to tremble. They were afraid that they would encounter something like this. They all trembled and tried to hide behind their companions. "Sister Jian, he's Tillage's subordinate," say Bayer. "He's ranked 31st in the organization." Qingyu went close to Yun Jian and whispered into her ear. Tillage was one of the old men of the Kosha mercenaries who was often mentioned. He had a place in the Kosha mercenaries, and was also the most loyal subordinate of the previous boss of the Kosha mercenaries. This man with the gun named Seibayer was Tillage's subordinate, which meant that he was Yun Jian's enemy. When Zhang Ziyuan saw Yun Jian and Qingyu leaning against each other, he thought that they were scared. Therefore, he abandoned his girlfriend, Fan Weiwei, and went to Yun Jian to speak to Yun Jian and Qingyu in concern. "Don't be scared, I'm here." Qingyu stopped talking to Yun Jian when she saw Zhang Ziyuan coming over. Zhang Ziyuan thought that Yun Jian and Qingyu were scared instead, so he spread his arms and used his body to hide them behind him. Zhang Ziyuan's action allowed Yun Jian and Qingyu to avoid Seibayer's gaze. Seibayer looked around and saw that everyone around him was looking at him with fear, which made him even more arrogant. "You come over here." At this moment, Seibayer suddenly caught sight of Hua Meiling, who was wearing a floral dress. He looked at Hua Meiling lecherously and hooked his finger at her. Seibayer of the Kosha mercenaries, ranked 31st, was a promiscuous bully. Hua Meiling was terrified. She stood where she was and shook her head, shrunk into herself nervously. Her action infuriated Seibayer. "F***ck woman. I'm flattering you by asking you to come over here. You shameless b***ch F***ck." Seibayer growled, but he did not kill her directly since he had not tasted Hua Meiling yet. He ran over in an attempt to grab Hua Meiling. Hua Meiling was even more frightened by the turn of events. She shrunk into herself and leaned against Fan Weiwei behind her. A glint flashed across Fan Weiwei's eyes. She thought viciously that it was Hua Meiling who had provoked Yun Jian and Qingyu. Therefore, Fan Weiwei steeled her heart and pushed Hua Meiling toward Seibayer. Just as Hua Meiling was about to be caught by Seibayer, the crowd saw a silhouette flash by. Seibayer's hand that reached for Hua Meiling's chicken claw was broken by Yun Jian, who appeared out of nowhere. Chapter 435. F***ck. Seibayer, who was kicked in the abdomen, groaned and fell to the ground. The place was silent as everyone stared unblinkingly at the petite silhouette. Everyone's eyes were glued to Yun Jian without exception. Sebaer was a well-built adult man while Yun Jian was only a 15-year-old girl. Moreover, Yun Jian had been standing behind Zhang Ziyuan earlier. In that split second, she had appeared in front of the crowd and kicked Sebaer, who was holding a gun, away at an astonishing speed. The scene shocked the entire place. Yun Jian. Zhang Ziyuan had stood in front of Yun Jian, and Qing Yu with his arms open, thinking that they were afraid of this scene. He did not expect Yun Jian to be so agile. Zhang Ziyuan and the rest were dumbfounded. Hua Meiling was equally stunned. She stared blankly at Yun Jian, who was standing in front of her. She had witnessed Yun Jian's kick to Sebaer the clearest. Sebaer's abdomen, which was kicked by Yun Jian, caved in at the same time. What kind of strength did Yun Jian have to be able to kick a living person's abdomen to the point where it caved in? Hua Meiling was completely dumbfounded. She did not even think that she would have to escape with Yun Jian in her current situation. F***ck. Sebaer, who was kicked away, was stronger than anyone Yun Jian had met before. He stood up with a low growl. None of the kosher mercenaries were weak. It was not something some of the people Yun Jian had met before could compare to. **th. How dare you kick me? Do you know who I am? I want you dead. Sebaer glanced at Yun Jian's face greedily. He growled, but his eyes were fixed on Yun Jian without blinking. With a growl from Sebaer, the group of people behind him ran up and surrounded Yun Jian and Hua Meiling, who was standing behind Yun Jian with their guns raised. Yun Jian could clearly feel Hua Meiling's momentary fear. She held onto the corner of Yun Jian's shirt and sobbed. What? What should we do? Yun Jian, what should we do? Are we going to die? Shut up. Yun Jian growled at Hua Meiling. Yun Jian then turned to face Sebaer with her delicate side profile. Sebaer, 35 years old, belongs to Gu Sha mercenaries, ranked 31st in the organization, one of Elder Tullidge's subordinates. Yun Jian spoke to Sebaer mechanically, as if she was reporting information. When everyone present heard this, they didn't know what to do. Kosher mercenaries? Most of the commoners had never come into contact with these assassin and secret agent organizations. Therefore, it was not surprising that most of them did not know. A well-behaved girl like Hua Meiling had never come into contact with these. However, Yun Jian's words sounded different to Sebaer's ears. His information was kept confidential, whether it was within or outside the kosher mercenaries. How did this girl know about it? Sebaer frowned and snarled. His malicious gaze turned as eerie as a falcon's. Damn it, you must die! Sebaer roared at Yun Jian. He even raised the Browning pistol that he had picked up after standing up and pointed it at Yun Jian. How dare you? Sebaer, how dare you act rashly in front of me? It was then that Qing Yu slipped out from behind Zhang Ziyuan. Looking at Sebaer, her mischievous tone was gone as she hollered, Brother Sebaer. Chapter 436. Qing Yu was also a member of the kosher mercenaries and held a high position. Qing Yu might not be ranked among the kosher mercenaries based on her ability, but her poison skills were even better than the kosher mercenaries' top leader, Snake. Lizard. Qing Yu was also trained by Snake. Lizard. More importantly, Qing Yu was the one who followed the kosher mercenaries' boss. Therefore, Qing Yu's position was not something the common folk could compare to. As for the kosher mercenaries' boss, even Sebaer did not have the chance to meet her, let alone the common folk who had never seen her face. Other than Yun Jian's most trusted subordinates, even the higher-ups of the kosher mercenaries had never seen her face. In her past life, Yun Jian would wear a human skin mask whenever she met the higher-ups of the kosher mercenaries or those old fellows. Moreover, it was a different face every time. Therefore, these old fellows still did not know what she looked like in her past life. Yun Jian's height in her past life was about the same as her current height. Therefore, Yun Jian was not worried that anyone would find out about her rebirth. This was why the kosher mercenaries' boss was so mysterious. Back to the topic. When Sebaer saw Qing Yu's face clearly, he was dumbfounded. With Qing Yu's position in the kosher mercenaries, Sebaer could not afford to offend her. Why are you here? Sebaer's attitude took a 360-degree turn. He even walked up to Qing Yu and lowered his body to ask. Looking at Sebaer's reaction, Hua Meiling Fan Weiwei, and Zhang Ziyuan were dumbfounded. All the tourists at the scene were completely stunned. Everyone looked at Qing Yu in shock, as well as Saber, who had suddenly become respectful in front of her. Who was this little girl? How could she make Saber, who was so arrogant just a moment ago, submit to her in an instant? Bastard, you've offended the person I respect the most. You don't deserve to know. Qing Yu raised her hand and slapped Saber hard. Everyone sucked in a breath of air. Everyone had witnessed Saber's killing spree. He was a demon. The people who were killed by Saber were killed for no reason at all, even though they hadn't done anything wrong. Now Qing Yu had slapped him. However, Saber was not angry. Not only did he not dare to be angry, he even apologized to Qing Yu. This was the hierarchy of kosher mercenaries. Saber dared not act rashly, because Qing Yu's position in the kosher mercenaries was higher than his. It would be a piece of cake for Qing Yu to kill Saibel. Just when everyone thought that the matter was about to come to an end, a pleasant and indifferent voice was heard unhurriedly. Kill him. Everyone looked towards the source of the voice, and saw Yun Jian pursing her lips slightly. She calmly spat out 3 words. However, these 3 words caused everyone to turn pale with fright. Even Saibel was stunned. What right did she have to dictate his life and death? Qing Yu accepted the order with her eyes lowered. She looked at Saber from the corner of her eyes, as if she was looking at a dead man. Saber was frightened by her gaze. He knew Qing Yu. She was a master of poison. The poison she created could turn a person's body into bones instantly. This was one of the main reasons why he was afraid of Qing Yu. Kill who? I'd like to see who dares. Right then, the humming sound of a helicopter's huge wings came from the sky. Then, an old man in his 50s or 60s jumped down from the helicopter. This person was the subordinate of the kosher mercenaries' previous boss, Tulich. Saibel was his man. Chapter 437. Tulich was an old man in his 50s or 60s. He had a ferocious face, but it was not hard to tell that he was not good-looking when he was younger. However, even though he was already very old, when he first appeared, he still shocked everyone present. Especially when Tulich came down from a private helicopter. His actions were exactly like the villains in the movies. Hua Meiling, Zhang Ziyuan, Fan Weiwei, and the rest were rooted to the spot completely dumbfounded. Not only the few of them, but the people on the beach were also overwhelmed by fear. This was because not long after Tulich appeared, a large group of men in black uniforms with machine guns in their hands appeared in front of them. More importantly, their wrists were exposed. There was a unique skull-shaped symbol on their wrists that sent chills down one's spine. Most of the people present did not know the meaning of the symbol. However, due to their instincts towards danger, a sense of fear arose in their hearts when they saw the markings on the wrists of these people. Elder Tulich. Saber was pleasantly surprised. Seeing that his elder had come to his rescue, he was no longer afraid of Qing Yu, and quickly went to stand beside Tulich. Tulich had been with the kosher mercenaries longer than Qing Yu. Even though Qing Yu and Tulich were of the same rank, Tulich's appeal in the kosher mercenaries was still slightly higher than Qing Yu's. On the other hand, Qing Yu was standing beside Yun Jian. Both parties stared at each other. Currently, Tulich was looking at Yun Jian insolently. His aged face looked like it was crawling with centipedes, looking ferocious and terrifying. However, when Tulich was sizing up Yun Jian, he felt the terrifying aura emanating from Yun Jian. The aura sent chills down Tulich's spine. Because he, Tulich, had only experienced this kind of aura from one person. However, from what he knew, that person would not appear here. She had been missing for a long time. When Slaying God went missing, Tulich had even sent people to conduct a large-scale search. In the end, they only managed to find Slaying God's favorite sports car, the Ferrari LaFerrari. But this person had mysteriously disappeared just like that. Then he disappeared without a trace. In fact, they hadn't seen each other for almost half a year. What did it mean if a person on this path disappeared for half a year for no reason? There was only one explanation. She was already dead. After coming to this conclusion, Tulich and the others were fearless. Recently they couldn't sit still, since that woman was already dead. In that case, the kosher mercenaries should not be under that woman's command. Therefore, Tillag's men began to ignore the kosher mercenaries' rules on a large scale, because he wanted to make a comeback and make his own decisions. Who are you? Tillage pressed his lips together and squinted at Evil Eye. There was a hint of murderous intent in his malevolent gaze as he asked Yunjian. Tillage, you don't deserve to know. Qingyu spat at Tillage and answered on behalf of Yunjian. Yunjian merely narrowed her eyes. Tillage, are you Elder Tillage from the kosher mercenaries? The #1 mercenary organization in the world? Right then a deep mature male voice that had been silent for a long time was heard. There was a deep sense of horror and shock in it. As soon as the mature man's terrified voice rang out, everyone present understood what he meant. A mercenary organization. Was that not an organization that killed people? It was the #1 in the world. Everyone's eyes widened in shock. Hua Meiling and the rest looked at Tillage and his men in horror. When they turned to look at Yunjian, their eyes were filled with worry. Chapter 438. Hua Meiling and the rest were university students while Zhang Ziyuan, Fan Weiwei, and the rest were studying in a local university in Country M. How could they have ever seen such a terrifying scene? Hua Meiling and the rest were so scared that their legs turned to jelly when Seibert shot and killed a bunch of people. Now, after hearing that Seibert and Tulig were from the #1 mercenary group in the world, he was so scared that his legs turned to jelly. Just like the introduction in the movie, the people in this underground mercenary group were all demons who killed without batting an eyelid. Human lives were worthless in their hands. Hence, everyone present was so scared that their legs turned to jelly, and a chill ran down their spines. Seibert's killing spree proved one thing. It was very likely that none of the people present would be able to make it out alive. Oh my God! If they had known that they would encounter such a terrifying incident today, they would never have come to Heifei Island for a vacation. However, the most impossible thing in this world was medicine for regret. The words of the mature man with a low voice earlier caused a stir in the crowd, but it did not affect Tulig and Yunjian, who were looking at each other. Yunjian's slightly pursed lips curled up slightly in the next second, forming a stunning smile. She did not expect to meet Tulig and the rest on Heifei Island. She also did not expect that Tulig and the rest of the old men could not wait to disregard the kosher mercenaries' rules and wreak havoc when she was out in the world for half a year. The kosher mercenaries had a clear rule that they were not allowed to kill people on a large scale for no reason. Not only would it attract the police's attention, but it would also cause a lot of trouble if they were to clash with the international police force. Now, she had only disappeared for half a year, and Tulig was already disregarding the kosher mercenaries' rules. Tulig, you're good. Yunjian gritted her teeth and gave Tulig a cruel smile as she spoke. No one could tell what she meant. However, Tulig's eyelids twitched. She was just a little girl. Although she looked similar to slaying God, so what? Tillage firmly believed that Yunjian was dead. Although Tillage had never seen Yunjian's face in her previous life, he could sense her. Moreover, slaying God had survived a hail of bullets while the little girl in front of him was beautiful, and her hands were fair and delicate. It was impossible for slaying God, who wielded weapons all the time, to have such fair hands. Therefore, even when Qingyu was standing next to Yunjian, Tillage had never associated Yunjian with his kosher mercenaries' boss, slaying God. I am very good, but little girl, something bad might happen. Tillage smiled savagely. He stared at Yunjian with a trace of cunning and cruel killing intent. No matter who this little girl was, she had to die. Tillage laughed sinisterly. He waved his hand and gestured to his men who were holding machine guns. The gesture was an order for them to open fire and kill everyone present, including Yunjian and Qingyu. Just as Tillage raised his hand to give the order, a racing car flashed past them. The car was like a bolt of lightning that flashed past them and stopped beside Yunjian. Screech! The car's tires screeched loudly. Then, two people alighted from the car. One of them was tall and sturdy, and his strong body was nearly 2 meters tall. The other had a voluptuous body, but wore a tight black shapewear. The former was Tiger, Leopard, whom Yunjian had contacted when she was reborn. The latter was Snake, Lizard, who had appeared not long ago. Chapter 439. The sudden appearance of snake, lizard and tiger. Leopard startled everyone once more. She did not know who they were, but it was clear that snake, lizard and tiger, leopard, who had just entered the race, were not ordinary people judging from how they drove past the crowd at lightning speed to get to Yunjian. It was especially so when they saw snake, lizard and tiger, leopard going up to Yunjian respectfully and calling her sister Jian. Hua Meiling and the others were dumbfounded when they saw the scene. Zhang Ziyuan in particular had been interested in Yunjian. Until now, the shock that Yunjian had given him was no small amount. But she was clearly a traveler from country Z with Hua Meiling. How did she know those people? Zhang Ziyuan and the others were deep in thought with a frown. Tisk, when Tillage saw snake, lizard and tiger, leopard walking toward Yunjian and greeting Yunjian respectively, he was slightly taken aback. Snake, lizard and tiger. Leopard's current status in kosher mercenaries was higher than his. Snake, lizard and tiger, leopard were both in charge of kosher mercenaries. In other words, the authority of kosher mercenaries was tightly held in their hands. In spite of it, other than their status being higher than Tulich's, Tulich did not give snake, lizard and tiger, leopard any face. The kosher mercenaries were divided into two factions in a hostile manner. One faction was snake, lizard and others who were on Yunjian's side. The other faction was Tulich and a bunch of old men who were dissatisfied with Yunjian and had once followed kosher mercenaries' previous boss. Of course, other than Tulich, there were plenty of old men who had once followed kosher mercenaries' previous boss. Of course, even when snake, lizard and tiger, leopard greeted Yunjian respectfully, Tillage did not associate Yunjian with the terrifying woman, slaying god. After all, no matter how much a person's appearance changed, it was impossible to change the calluses on their hands as well. The young lady in front of him was sizing up Tillage's hands. Her delicate and smooth hands were not the same as slaying god's hands that were full of scars and calluses. What are you waiting for? Kill everyone. Since Tillage had decided to rebel, he would not turn back, especially at this critical juncture. He was prepared to fight snake, lizard and tiger, leopard to death. If slaying god were here today, Tillage would probably be terror-stricken. No one knew better than Tu Ligay how terrifying the woman named Slaying God was. Even when Slaying God took away Gu Sha mercenaries, Tillage did not even dare to make a sound. Unfortunately, there were only snake, lizard and tiger, leopard now. Slaying God. Therefore, Tillage wanted to take advantage of this opportunity to rebel. He even wanted to claim the entire Gu Sha mercenaries as his own. Tillage's words made everyone present turn pale with fright and panic. The men around them were armed with machine guns. They could kill them instantly with a sweep of their weapons. At this moment, everyone felt the despair of impending death. Tillage, open your eyes wide and see who I am. How dare you act so insolently in front of me? Have you forgotten how kosher mercenaries fell into my hands back then? Just as everyone thought that they were going to die in despair, a brash and arrogant female voice rang. Following the gaze, they saw Yunjian pulling out a butterfly knife and playing with it in her palm as she spoke to Tillage arrogantly. Watching Yunjian play with the butterfly knife, Tillage's pupils contracted. The way she played with the knife was a perfect match for the terrifying woman in his mind. Chapter 440. Yunjian's words not only shocked Tillage, but everyone present could not help but inhale sharply. The kosher mercenaries was a mercenary organization. Yunjian's words were as clear as day. Yunjian, who claimed to be the kosher mercenaries, had fallen into their hands from Tillage and the rest. Was she not the boss of the kosher mercenaries? The boss of the kosher mercenaries, slaying God? The group of people present was completely terrified and stunned. If 99% of the people present did not know Tillage, then who did not know the king of the Secret Service, Slaying God? Speaking of Slaying God, most of the people present knew her. Slaying God. She had once swept the world's newspapers and was even listed as the world's strongest female Secret Service agent. She was also the world's most dangerous person, an international 3S wanted criminal. There was once a reporter who jokingly introduced her in the newspapers. You're not far from death if you meet this person. This topic had been a hot topic for a period of time, so much so that some people still remembered it. However, no one would have thought that the legendary king of the Secret Service, slaying God, the #1 Secret Service agent, the boss of the kosher mercenaries, was actually this young girl in front of them. This was too unbelievable. Everyone's fear did not affect Yunjian at all. Yunjian's eyes were fixed on Tullidge. Her fingers that were swinging the butterfly knife paused. No one knew why Tullidge was so afraid of her. Of course, Tullidge and the other old men were excluded. Back then, Yunjian had only used a butterfly knife and a bulletproof vest to break into the kosher mercenaries alone, and killed the previous boss of the kosher mercenaries. Her speed was so fast that she could catch up to a bullet. In terms of skills, Tullidge and the rest of the old men were no match for her at all. However, Yunjian could not touch them back then. This was because once the kosher mercenaries were in chaos, other mercenary groups would take advantage of the situation. Just like how Yunjian had killed Su Zhouzheng, the boss of the Skybridge sect, she had only led a small group of men to subjugate the Flying Passage sect, which was in the midst of internal strife, without much effort. This principle was the same. Old fogey, I didn't expect that after 2 years of peace, you still won't change your mind. You actually want to replace me. Yunjian swung her butterfly knife and stepped forward. She was not the least bit afraid of the people with machine guns around her. She was not afraid of being beaten into a beehive. Yunjian's actions made Tullidge's eyelids twitch. Today is the day you die. Yunjian's flat words sounded different to everyone's ears. Everyone present felt their hairs stand on end, and their hearts and minds tensed up. Especially Hua Meiling and the rest who had just interacted with Yunjian. Their shock was indescribable. They had thought that Yunjian and Qingyu were just regular travelers. They did not expect them to have such terrifying identities. Tullidge no longer hid his true nature after recognizing that Yunjian was slaying God. He knew that once he was exposed to Yunjian, there would only be 2 outcomes. Either he would die or Yunjian would die. It was obvious that Tullidge would choose the latter. Fire the machine guns and kill them. Tullidge ordered his men who were armed with machine guns. This roar was very intense. However, Tullidge's roar did not elicit any response. Tullidge shouted again. Tullidge finally came to his senses. He looked at Yunjian with a terrified gaze and growled, what have you done?" Chapter 441. Yunjian spoke calmly, but it made Tullidge and Sabayer who stood behind him shudder. What do you mean?" Tullidge's eyelids twitched as he glanced at Yunjian in fear. "I mean it literally. You can try if you don't believe me. See if they listen to you or me." Yunjian crossed her arms and looked at Tullidge fearlessly with a smirk. She had disappeared for half a year. Although she was in Longmen City, it was not as if she had not made any arrangements. She had not shown herself in the kosher mercenaries in order to give Tullidge and the other old men the wrong impression. Yunjian was dead. In spite of it, Yunjian had been planning to replace the men under the kosher mercenaries with her own men. Yunjian had not done it herself, but she had snake, lizard and tiger, leopard, snake, lizard and tiger, leopard were absolutely loyal to her. Yunjian had been in Longmen City for the past few months, but snake, lizard had been running around to recruit capable men. When Yunjian had just taken over the kosher mercenaries, she had already secretly replaced the men under the old men with her own men. Her actions were done discreetly and with snake, lizard's efficiency. The old men did not suspect a thing. Just like Tullidge, he only reacted when he could no longer order his men to obey his orders. Tullidge instantly realized that something was wrong. He reacted quickly, but it was too late. If Yunjian had killed these old men before, the kosher mercenaries would have lost their status in the underworld for a while. Now, she had full confidence that she would be completely unaffected after annihilating this group of old fogies. Since you can't order them around, I'll do it. The corners of Yunjian's lips lifted into a devilish smirk. In spite of it, Yunjian's demeanor was even more terrifying to Tullidge and his men. Especially after knowing that Yunjian was slaying God, Tullidge and his men dared not treat Yunjian as normal anymore. Kill him, Yunjian uttered faintly. maintaining a smile that did not reach her eyes. As soon as the order was given, the group of subordinates carrying machine guns immediately moved. The men aimed their machine guns at Tulig. Bang! 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 Then a series of machine gun shots were heard. These people were really taking orders from Yun Jian. Tulig dodged the bullets in fear. Except for the group of subordinates carrying machine guns, they swept towards Tulig and killed the group of people closest to Tulig in seconds. Tulig was not weak. He was old, but he had been training, so he had a decent physique. Tulig managed to avoid being hit in the vitals of the machine guns, but he was still scratched. After a minute, other than Tulig, who was covered in wounds, and Sebaer, who was panting on the ground, none of Tulig's subordinates were still alive. Even the person closest to him was killed on the spot, because he couldn't avoid the wave of machine gun fire just now. A minute later, Yun Jian gestured for them to stop. Tulig and Sebaer were not weak. They were not easy to deal with. Yun Jian narrowed her eyes. She stood in front of Tulig again, and waved her butterfly knife at him in front of everyone. Since the machine guns can't kill you, I'll have to do it myself. Chapter 442. With the butterfly knife in her hand, Yun Jian walked slowly towards Sebaer, who was lying on the ground on the verge of death, and Tulig, who was in a sorry state. She held the butterfly knife in her fair hand, but her figure was slender. At least from the black eyes of Hua Meiling and the rest, her figure was clearly reflected. She was tall and strong. The current Yun Jian was nothing like her previous self. The current Yun Jian was like a demon from hell. Is she really going to kill them? Hua Meiling's horrified voice was heard faintly. There was a hint of shock in her voice. Aside from Hua Meiling, Zhang Ziyuan and Fan Weiwei, who had been looking at Yun Jian with ill intentions earlier, were so shocked that they were speechless. Old man, do you have anything to say before you die? Yun Jian spun the butterfly knife nimbly between her fingers as she looked at Tulig, and asked softly. Ha ha ha. Tulig was in a sorry state after dodging the machine gun's barrage. Even the corner of his shirt was torn from the friction, but he was still laughing. After all, it was a barrage of bullets. No matter how powerful Tulig was, there were still quite a number of bullets that entered his body. It was just that he had managed to avoid being hit in his vital parts. However, Tulig knew slaying God's ability. There was no way he could withstand slaying God's attack. Slaying God, putting our grudges aside, you're the strongest person I've ever met in my life. But I, Tulig, am not a weakling, and I won't let you kill me. Tulig roared as he took out a silver pistol from his belt and pointed it at his temple. Bang! He ended his life. Tulig's eyes widened as he stared at Tulig. Tulig's eyes widened as he stared at Tulig. Ah! Someone in the crowd screamed when they saw that. Yun Jian was even more beautiful under the sunlight. However, she was unfazed by Tulig's death. It was as if an insignificant person had died in front of her. At that moment, it was as if she had returned to her past life when she regarded human lives as worthless. She pursed her red lips slightly and said softly to Snake, Lizard and the other two behind her, kill Sebaer and follow me back to the organization. Looking at Yun Jian, who was surrounded by the crowd, Hua Meiling and the rest felt the distance between them and Yun Jian for the first time. Zhang Ziyuan could no longer use the word shocked to describe his fear. He was thankful that he had not offended Yun Jian's wrath. Dozens of kilometers away from Heifei Island, there was a hidden gloomy island. The island was very large, and the trees were dense. The large forest completely covered the buildings in the depths of the forest. If the sunlight occasionally shone down, one could clearly see that the walls of these buildings were imprinted with large and unique skull imprints. This was the headquarters of the Kosha mercenaries. Because Gu Sha mercenaries was hidden deep in the forest, it was difficult to be discovered. At this moment, a group of old men in their 40s and 50s were gathered in a large building. The crowds was slaying God has been missing for half a year. I think she's most likely dead. Snake, lizard and tiger, leopard are troublesome, but as long as we work together, we'll be able to take back the Kosha mercenaries. That's right. Slaying God has occupied the Kosha mercenaries for so long. It's time for her to return. The group was aggressive as they plotted a conspiracy. It was because slaying God had been missing for half a year that they dared to be so brazen. Otherwise, this group of old men would not have dared to do anything when slaying God was still in the organization. Bam! Suddenly, the door was slammed open. Tiger, leopard and snake, lizard were escorting a young girl as they entered. The girl tossed a package on the ground and chuckled. "Elders, how have you been? I heard that you missed me a lot." The package fell to the ground and rolled twice on the ground. Then the thing inside the package was revealed. It was actually a bloody head. Chapter 443. The Kosha mercenary's boss, slaying God, had never looked like her in her previous life. Even the Kosha mercenary's elders had never seen her before. This was because slaying God would appear with a different appearance and identity each time she appeared. She would not stay for long. However, all the Kosha mercenary's elders and higher-ups knew that slaying God's ability was not something anyone could compare to. Therefore, when Yun Jian tossed Tullij's head in front of the elders, only one word flashed in their minds: slaying God. Only slaying God would be so insolent. Only slaying God, snake, lizard and tiger, leopard would escort her back to the Kosha mercenaries. Slaying God. One of the elders shouted in horror. Apart from snake, lizard and tiger, leopard, the Kosha mercenaries' elders were all helpers left behind by the previous boss. At the same time, all of them were old men who were constantly thinking of ways to kill Yun Jian. Clearly, these old men did not expect Yun Jian to return alive after going missing for half a year. Usually, there was only one outcome for those who went missing for more than half a year. They were dead. Therefore, even if it was the group of assassins and secret agents who were ranked at the top internationally, they would be automatically assumed to be dead if they went missing for a year. Their ranking would then be rearranged. Life and death. As long as one was on this path, no one could guarantee their life or death. Why are all of you so excited to welcome me back? I'm really flattered. Yun Jian scoffed. She let snake, lizard and tiger, leopard around Tullij's head, which was now covered in dried blood, and walked to the front, where only the highest authority had the right to sit. None of the elders below dared to make a sound. However, at that moment, everyone's heart was in turmoil. Slaying God was not dead. Yun Jian's fingers had already grazed the long table, and she slid along the table to sit on a stool. Now it's time for us to settle the score. Yun Jian tapped her fingertips on the table twice and smiled. Her smile made her look like a harmless girl, beautiful and alluring. The group of elders was shocked. You joined forces with the Inferno Ring to secretly kidnap my brother. This is a generous gift you gave me half a year ago. Yun Jian's eyes suddenly turned sharp. As she spoke, she slammed the table and stood up. Her sharp eyes swept across the room. The Inferno Ring was the mastermind behind her brother's death in her previous life. But Yun Jian knew that all of this had something to do with this bunch of old men in front of her. Now that her brother had been reborn with her, this was Yun Jian's fortune. However, she, Yun Jian, was going to take back the torture her brother had suffered from this group of people, bit by bit. So now, do any elders have any last words? Yun Jian's sharp eyes changed. She lowered her eyes and looked at the elders, as if she was looking at a group of dead people. Yun Jian was prepared to spill the beans upon her return this time. The pupils of the elders constricted. Finally, an old man who was about 60 years old stood out. This elder's name was Bubba. Seeing that Yun Jian had shed all pretense of cordiality, Bubba did not bother pretending. Instead, he grinned menacingly and said, "Haha, slaying God. We don't mind telling you that we've joined forces with various assassin organizations. We must have surrounded this place by now. Last words? We'll pass on our last words to you today." Since he had decided to spill the beans, Bubba took out a rescue device from his pocket and pressed the button. This was the device that he had requested for help from the other assassin organizations. Once the button was pressed, the Kosha Mercenaries Island would be completely surrounded by the assassin organizations that had been working with them and had been lying in wait for a long time. Chapter 444. Yun Jian's long eyelashes fluttered as she watched Bubba press the rescue button. She curled her lips into a smile. Oh, that's it? Yun Jian raised her brow and asked with a smile. Her tone was brisk and carefree. She did not sound panicked at all when she was in a disadvantageous position. Bubba frowned slightly as well, grumbling to himself. She was just bluffing. He had already formed an alliance with various assassin organizations and mercenary organizations. Even the internationally renowned assassin organization, an Hun group, had agreed to work with him. He would like to see how slaying God was going to survive this time. Today he, Bubba, would lead everyone to break her legend. What's slaying God? She was going to be destroyed by them in the end. So what if slaying God was powerful? Without any support, could it be that she could defy the heavens and fight against all of them by herself? I'll wait and see. Yun Jian sat back on the chair calmly. She looked at the group of old men unhurriedly. Suddenly, a glint flashed in her eyes. A murderous aura emerged. None of the elders dared to move when they saw that Yun Jian did not move. No one dared to doubt slaying God's ability. Among the group of elders before her, which one of them was not an internationally renowned figure? If an outsider were to witness this scene, the group of internationally renowned figures would be on high alert as they watched the girl sitting on the bench at ease. How shocking would that be? However, those in the know would not feel that way, because the girl sitting on the bench was slaying God. Thud, thud, thud. Then loud footsteps came from outside the door. Bubba was overjoyed when he saw Yun Jian. His rescue was here. The elders were overjoyed. At the same time, they glared fiercely at Yun Jian. They looked as if they wanted to swallow Yun Jian alive. Bam! The door that had been closed earlier was slammed open again. After that, the people who entered through the door were the leaders of the various assassin organizations. Bubba and the others turned around excitedly and happened to see a group of people entering through the door. This group of people who came in were all the leaders of the major assassin organizations. Bubba proudly walked over and expressed his goodwill to the leaders of the assassin organizations. Then, he turned around and led the group of elders to look at Yun Jian. His eyes emitted a vicious aura. Slaying God, come down if you know what's good for you. Otherwise, cough cough, don't blame us for being impolite. Bubba furrowed his brows as he looked at Yun Jian. With the support of these major assassin organizations behind them, Bubba and the other old fellows instantly became arrogant. Yun Jian pursed her lips and sneered. Behind him, snake, lizard and tiger, leopard remained motionless. They only listened to Yun Jian's orders. If Yun Jian did not move, they would not move either. Okay. Slaying God, since you don't know what's good for you, don't blame us for being rude. Bubba grinned viciously and was about to join forces with the assassin organizations to surround Yun Jian. Let's see who dares. Just then, a voice was heard from the door. Yun Jian's eyes flickered when she heard the male voice. She turned around and saw Adam, dressed in a suit, walking in through the door. Clearly, he was here on behalf of the Hun organization. Everyone present was aware of the Hun organization's ability. They were more terrifying than the kosher mercenaries. Therefore, everyone was filled with awe at once. Bubba walked forward with his head hung low and lowered his head respectfully at Adam. Master Adam, you're here? The strongest assassin organization he had invited was here to support him. Bubba cursed inwardly. Slaying God, you're going to die today. However, Adam did not even look at him. He walked around the crowd and came to Yun Jian. He lowered his head and greeted Yun Jian respectfully. Young madam. Who was Adam? He was the person who followed the most mysterious leader of the Hun organization. Since he was here, it meant that, suddenly, a tall man appeared at the door. He had dashing eyebrows and starry eyes. His sharp gaze swept across the crowd, carrying with it an absolute aura and the air of a king. I heard that someone wants to touch my woman. Are you ready to make an enemy out of the Hun organization? The man sneered and strode forward, enunciating each word clearly. The most mysterious leader of the Hun organization. At this moment, everyone's hearts were filled with shock. Chapter 445. However, the most shocking thing was what Ce said. What did he mean by his woman? In an instant, a frightening and shocking thought suddenly emerged. Could slaying God be Hun's leader's woman? The Enhun organization was known as the world's top assassin organization because it was so powerful that words could not describe it. Although the kosher mercenaries were powerful, the kosher mercenaries were currently embroiled in internal strife. How could a powerful organization be powerful without unity? At the end of the day, the Enhun organization had trained countless assassins and secret agents. These people had gained a foothold in the international arena. The Enhun organization, on the other hand, had the weapons and equipment to fight against a country. Under such circumstances, the Enhun organization was actually more powerful than the kosher mercenaries. In other words, provoking the Enhun organization was far more terrifying than provoking the kosher mercenaries. Therefore, after CE's words, most of the assassin organization members took a few shaky steps back. What a joke! Their assassin organization paled in comparison to the Enhun organization. Were they not digging their own graves? Looking at CE, who was making his way to Yunjian, Bubba's aged face took on a solemn expression as his brows were almost knitted together. This was the leader of the Enhun organization? How could he be so young? More importantly, slaying God was his woman? The Enhun organization's power was beyond Bubba and the rest's imagination. However, the current situation told Bubba and the rest that either slaying God or they would die. They had no choice. Just as Bubba and the rest were overwhelmed with fear and had no time to think about what to do next, CE was already in front of Yunjian. Yunjian slowly stood up from her seat. She stared at CE and asked softly, "Why are you here?" Yunjian did not ask in a reprimanding tone. Instead, she spoke in a tone that said she was relieved that he was here. CE's appearance made Yunjian heave a sigh of relief. To be honest, she was already prepared to fight to the death with this group of old men today. She wasn't completely confident. However, they were not completely unprepared. But even if she lost, she wanted to lose in a glorious way. In spite of it, CE's arrival gave her a feeling that came from the bottom of her heart. It was as if as long as he was here, everything could be relaxed. "I'm here to help you," CE pursed his lips, revealing a trace of handsomeness on his flawless face. These three ordinary words softened Yunjian's heart. No assassin organization would participate in the internal strife of other organizations unless it was profitable. Just like the assassin organizations that had come to help Bubba and the others. As for CE, he didn't want any benefits, nor did he ask for anything from her. Just these three words touched Yunjian's heart. She had fought alone in her previous life, and had been alone for 2 lifetimes. She had relied on her own strength to reach the peak of the world. Yunjian looked at CE and nodded heavily. Tiger, leopard and snake, lizard, who were standing in front of Yunjian, were equally stunned. Beep beep. At this moment the communication device in Adam's hand rang. Adam hurriedly accepted the call. Immerse's calm, but shocking voice came from the communication device. "The 536 enemies on the nearby islands have all been annihilated." Immerse's voice came from the communication device. It was neither fast nor slow, but everyone present was shocked and terrified. What? Those 536 people? Weren't they the people sent by all the assassin organizations to rescue Bubba? All annihilated? And one of the 4 leaders of the Enhun organization, Immerse, had personally taken action. It had only been a short while, and all 536 experts were gone. Chapter 446. The leaders of the various assassin organizations whom Bubba had invited to assist him stood rooted to the ground in fear. Dead. In order to help Bubba fight slaying God, these assassin organizations had selected the most powerful people in their organizations. However, they were now informed that the most powerful people in their assassin organizations were all dead. How long had it been? Fighting Enhun organization? This was the outcome. The assassin organization's representatives were horrified and regretful, but no one dared to say anything with CE around. Their organization's strongest experts had been killed, which meant that their assassin organization would be completely paralyzed for a few years. So many powerful people had died. Each of these 536 people had been trained by the organization at a cost of tens of thousands of gold coins. That's 536 people. This was definitely a huge loss. Now, other than regretting that they had agreed to help Bubba and the rest deal with slaying God, the assassin organizations hated Bubba as well. If not for Bubba's invitation, they would not have suffered such a loss. After hearing the news, Bubba and the rest of the old men were completely devastated. An Hun organization had not made a move yet, but it was shocking when they did. Initially, Bubba had thought that he had gotten an Hun organization to help him take down the kosher mercenaries. However, CE's appearance and Adam's words through the communication device had completely driven him into despair. They had lost. They had completely lost. They had lost before the battle even started. Forget about Yun Jian, who had an Hun organization's help. Even without an Hun's help, Bubba and the rest understood that they might not be able to defeat Yun Jian, even if they joined forces with the assassin organizations. She was slaying God after all. Yun Jian's lips parted in a smile when she saw the despair on Bubba and the others' faces. Even though she had not won with her own strength, at least Bubba and the rest had betrayed her in her previous life and helped Inferno Ring kidnap her younger brother. She could finally avenge them. Looking at how happy Yun Jian was with her lips pressed together, CE wore a handsome smile as well. As long as she was happy, even if she wanted the moon in the sky, he would think of a way to get it. Emo-san, who had spoken through the communicator, quickly led a group of people from an Hun, who were covered in black gauze and rushed in. He walked straight to CE and nodded. "Young master, the annihilation is complete." Yes. CE nodded lightly. He was standing in front of Yun Jian, and his hand was already on her slender waist. Pausing for a moment, his sharp eyes suddenly sharpened like a hawk's. "Kill everyone here." By everyone, he was referring to Bubba and the others, including the people from the assassin organization. The reason was simple. Since they knew that he was the leader of an Hun, they had to die. Yes, Emo-san nodded, and then extended his hand to instruct the group of men who were covered in black gauze. "We were wrong. We promised that we will not find trouble with the kosher mercenaries in the future." The people in charge of the assassin organization were scared silly, and all of them howled. Since you know my identity as the young master, you have to die." Adam chuckled, and was the first to rush forward. In an instant, the scene was filled with blood and flesh. Yun Jian naturally knew why CE did this. The fewer people who knew that he was the leader of an Hun, the better. He would kill anyone who knew about this. Yun Jian pushed CE's hand away from her waist. She pointed at the stunned snake, lizard and tiger, leopard and said to CE, "They are my people. They won't tell anyone about this." Yun Jian did this to prevent CE from killing snake, lizard and tiger, leopard. CE, however, replied with a small smile, I know everything about you." Chapter 447. Yun Jian smiled with her lips pressed together when she saw CE's reaction. Her smile surprised both snake, lizard and tiger, leopard. What was even more shocking was how CE had addressed Yun Jian as my woman, without mincing words. Since when did their sister Jian get together with an Hun's leader? It was not a bad thing though. There was a reason why Adam and Emo-san could become an Hun's leaders and follow CE all the way. Of course, the two of them weren't bad at fighting, which was an extremely important reason. The old men of kosher mercenaries, including those from the assassin organization, were not easy to deal with. After all, they would not stand there stupidly and allow themselves to be slaughtered. But even so, Adam and Emo-san quickly gained the upper hand and killed all of them on the spot after a brief confrontation. After completing CE's orders, both of them came to CE and told him, "Young master, they're all dead." The ground was littered with corpses, but Yun Jian and the others did not even frown. It was the same when they took down the kosher mercenaries' previous boss, kosher mercenaries. Things like this were nothing out of the ordinary for Yun Jian and the others who were in this circle. This was how the world worked. Winners were kings and losers were bandits. Losers were bandits. The weak deserved to die. There was no reason for it. CE nodded slightly. Yun Jian turned to instruct snake, lizard and tiger, leopard that the kosher mercenaries would be reorganized. Now that Booba and the others were dead, the positions of these elders were vacant. What Yun Jian meant was that anyone who was capable should be promoted. Yun Jian left the selection of people to snake, lizard and tiger, leopard. This period of time was enough for them to be busy enough. Yun Jian would send people to take care of the corpses here. Ce was currently holding Yun Jian's hand as they walked out of the forest. Both of them did not leave the forest, but came to a more tranquil place. When they arrived, Ce smirked at Yun Jian. His tall figure almost covered Yun Jian's petite figure. Slaying God, Ce said faintly as he looked at Yun Jian with interest. Yun Jian looked to the side. She did not look at Ce, but her heart was racing. She did not tell Ce her identity in the beginning. He did not hold anything back, while she kept everything a secret. Do you know something? Yun Jian heaved a sigh of relief. She looked at Ce with a probing gaze. Ce suddenly leaned over to Yun Jian's face. He was taller than her, so Ce had to lower his head to touch Yun Jian's cheek. At this moment, Ce's breath was right in front of Yun Jian. He smirked and his handsome face became clearer. What do you want me to know? Ce suddenly teased. He lowered his head and probed Yun Jian's collarbone. This action caused everyone to feel incomparably bitter. Yun Jian blushed. Just when Yun Jian thought that Ce was going to say something else, he stood up abruptly and put some distance between himself and her. He paused and said, "Don't say it if you don't want to." There was a tinge of disappointment in his words. She did not come clean in the end, even if he already knew the truth. Just when Ce turned to leave, Yun Jian's resolute voice was heard. "I was reborn. It was the sandalwood box that made me who I am now." Chapter 448. Ce was overjoyed when he heard her. He was not surprised by Yun Jian's rebirth, nor was he shocked. "I've known about this for a long time." Ce returned to Yun Jian's side. Looking at her, there seemed to be a warm current flowing slowly into his heart. His joy stemmed from Yun Jian's confession. He wanted to hear it from her personally, because when she chose to tell him the secret hidden in the deepest part of her heart, it meant that she had truly acknowledged him. Now Ce could confirm that Yun Jian had completely accepted him. Ce wanted to hug Yun Jian, but Yun Jian dodged him with a sidestep. She gritted her teeth and pouted at Ce. "You know, then why are you asking me this?" It wasn't true anger, but rather a feeling of comfort in his heart. Other than snake, lizard, tiger, leopard, and Qingyu, who knew about her rebirth, Yun Jian had not told anyone since her rebirth. As for Ce, he was the first person she trusted completely and told him about it. If one were to ask for a reason, even Yun Jian herself would not be able to explain it. She had just told him, and it was actually a relief to say it out loud. Ce walked over and pulled her into his embrace again without a word. This time, Yun Jian did not reject him. "I just want to hear you be honest with me personally," Ce said with a quirk of his handsome lips and a raised brow. Yun Jian, who was in his embrace, was speechless. Yun Jian and Ce did not delve into the topic. Now that the sandalwood box was involved, it was a more profound matter. With Gusha mercenaries dead, there was no one else in Kosha mercenaries who could threaten Yun Jian anymore. Snake, lizard and tiger, leopard had quickly filled in the vacant positions of Elder Booba, and the others with the candidates they had chosen earlier. This way, the Kosha mercenaries could continue operating. Yun Jian had kept a low profile when she returned this time. She did not expect to run into Saber and Tulig on Hafei Island. As for Hua Miling and the others, they had already been taken away. Yun Jian probably wouldn't be able to see her again in this lifetime. Sometimes life was just like that. You would meet some people you got along well with on your journey, but once you said goodbye, it would be a lifetime. After dealing with the Kosha mercenaries, Yun Jian could finally relax. Now the management of the Kosha mercenaries would be handed over to Snake, Lizard and Tiger, Leopard. Yun Jian, on the other hand, brought Qingyu back to Country Z. However, on the way back, Ce, Adam, and Mo's son, the three of them were extremely eye-catching existences wherever they went. Yun Jian could only hold her forehead and sigh softly. However, she couldn't chase Ce and the others away because she didn't want them to stay with her. Yun Jian finally returned to Country Z. Under everyone's gaze, Qingyu went home to watch cartoons as soon as she returned. Yunjian and Ce went to pick up Xiao Yunju after class. During the winter break, Xiao Yunju did not have any classes, but Xiao Yunju was eager to learn, so he went to make up for it. At the same time, Yunjian was holding Xiao Yunju's hand as they walked out of the tutoring station. Xiao Yunju was still holding Yunjian's hand earlier, but when he saw Ce standing beside the Lamborghini waiting for him, he ran over to Ce with his short legs. Extending his hand, Xiao Yunju said without hesitation, "Brother Ce, you're back? You promised me that you would bring back delicious food for me." Chapter 449. After finishing his favorite KFC, Xiao Yunju was satisfied. Rubbing his full tummy, he excitedly pulled Ce with one hand and Yunjian with the other as they walked out of the KFC. Xiao Yunju held Yunjian and Ce's hands respectively as he bounced around, looking extremely excited. Xiao Yunju had been eating well these days, and his skinny body was starting to grow. At least, Xiao Yunju's cheeks were now round, and his petite frame had grown taller as well, almost reaching Yunjian's chest height now. "Xiaozhu, your Ce Gige said he's bringing you to buy new clothes. You can buy as many as you want. It's almost Chinese New Year. Our Xiaozhu has to dress up beautifully." Yunjian squatted down and pinched Xiao Yunju's cheeks lightly. She pressed her lips together, a beautiful smile playing on her beautiful face. As they spoke, Yunjian could not help teasing Ce. Ce, who stood aside, did not utter a word. When did he say that? "Yay, new clothes. Xiaozhu wants to buy new clothes." Xiao Yunju grabbed Yunjian and Ce's hands excitedly and jumped up and down. Ce felt inexplicably refreshed when he saw how happy Xiao Yunju was, and how Yunjian was smiling sincerely as well. Looking at the black watch on his wrist, Ce's lips curled into a smirk as he said frivolously, "Let's go." It was only then that the three of them made their way to Longmen City's shopping mall. The clothes that Xiao Yunju was wearing should be bought at the children's store. When Yunjian and Ce walked out of the store with a big bag of Xiao Yunju's clothes, they bumped into Chu Ning at the entrance. Longmen City was only so big, and Yunjian had not been to the military training camp recently, as the Chinese New Year was approaching. It was not surprising that they bumped into Chu Ning here. Chu Ning was currently holding onto a middle-aged woman, who was rather plump and well-proportioned. The moment she saw Yunjian, Chu Ning ran over with the middle-aged woman. "Yunjian, I didn't expect to see you here." Chu Ning had just spoken when she was suddenly captivated by Xiao Yunju's exquisite face. "Little brother, it's you." Chu Ning squatted down and pinched Xiao Yunju's cheeks like Yunjian did before she exclaimed. Chu Ning had met both Ce and Xiao Yunju before. However, her memory of Xiao Yunju was still stuck at the little boy Yunjian had saved when they were hiking on Weiwu Mountain in Jinglian town. She did not pay much attention to him back then, but she heard that Yunjian had adopted him. "Hello Jejia." Xiao Yunju greeted Chu Ning politely. "Hee, you're so cute." Chu Ning chuckled at Xiao Yunju and stood up. She turned to introduce Yunjian and the rest to the middle-aged woman standing beside her, before turning back to introduce the middle-aged woman. "This is my mom." The middle-aged woman was Chu Ning's mother, Wenhui. Wenhui had heard from her daughter, Chu Ning, about Yunjian's performance in the special forces early on. In particular, her daughter, Chu Ning, kept telling her that Team Monarch's great achievements were all thanks to Yunjian. Therefore, when Chu Ning introduced her as Yunjian, Wenhui quickly greeted her. "Hello, young lady." They soon got to know each other. Since Yunjian and Chu Ning were close, they went shopping together for a while. When they parted, Chu Ning's mother, Wenhui, seemed to like Yunjian very much. She even invited Yunjian. "Young lady, come to my house when you're free." Ning Ning said that she's going out with her friends after the new year. "You're coming together, aren't you?" Yunjian then recalled that Team Monarch had planned to go out again after the new year, after completing the mission of retrieving the jade pendant from Peter. And this time, they were allowed to bring their relatives and friends along for the trip. If Wenhui had not mentioned it, Yunjian would have forgotten about it. Chapter 450. After bidding farewell to Chu Ning and Wen Hui, Yun Jian held Xiao Yunju's hand, while Xiao Yunju held Si Yi's hand with his other hand, as they walked towards the garage. It was already 6 or 7 in the evening, and the sky darkened quickly in winter. Yun Jian and Si Yi brought Xiao Yunju to the garage. After starting the car, the two of them brought Xiao Yunju home. The days before the new year passed quickly, and before long, it was the eve of the new year. Si Yi had never celebrated the new year. He was born into a military family, and his father, Si Chu, did not care much about him, and usually did not care whether he was dead or alive. Therefore, Si Yi had never celebrated the new year, even though he had lived for 19 years. 3 days before the new year, Si Yi returned to an Hun organization. Before he left, Yun Jian reminded him to remember to rush back on the night of the new year. They were a family, so it was natural for them to celebrate the new year together. The word family warmed Si Yi's heart. After he promised Yun Jian, he left with Adam and Imo Senator. There were many things waiting for him in an Hun organization. After all, it was an assassin organization, but unlike the kosher mercenaries, he could not just sit around and do nothing all day long like Yun Jian. The kosher mercenaries issued missions on the website, and all they had to do was contact the employer and complete the mission. An Hun organization, on the other hand, trained batches of assassins and secret agents. Naturally, this was different. Su Zetian's injuries were recovering at an astonishing speed. He could now return to Falcon Hall to handle some matters that required him to think and not do with his hands, with the help of his wife, Lin Wanru. On the night of the Spring Festival, everyone went back to their homes and gathered in one place. Qin Yiru planned to bring Yun Jian, Yun Yi and Xiao Yunju back to her parents' home in town for the new year. After all, she was a native of Xinjiang town. Of course, they had to go home on New Year's Eve. At 4 o'clock in the afternoon, Yun Jian packed her things and prepared to return to the countryside with Qin Yiru. She held Xiao Yunju's hand and waited at home for a long time, but Si Yi did not return. In the end, she left a note in Si Yi's room and followed Qin Yiru on the bus back to Xinjiang town. Grandma Zhang Meihua's attitude towards Qin Yiru and Yun Jian had been much more restrained since the last time they met, especially when she heard from Qin Fangfang's family that Yun Jian was the director of new crews. When she first heard this, Zhang Meihua was dumbfounded on the spot. She had never imagined that her most insignificant granddaughter would become the director of new crews, a company that had stirred up a storm in the country. Zhang Meihua had been bragging about this for a long time. She had even bragged about it in front of her distant relatives. However, Zhang Meihua did not tell them that Yun Jian was the director of new crews, because her fourth child, Qin Fangfang, had told her that Yun Jian did not like people spreading the news. Zhang Meihua loved to suck up to Yun Jian now. She was still waiting for Yun Jian to take care of her when she was old. The news of Yun Jian starting a company had already spread in Xinjiang town. Qin Yiru naturally knew about it too. When she first found out, she had asked Yun Jian about it. Yun Jian had said that she knew Mayor Gu and gave him a good proposal to invest in the company. Qin Yiru believed this lie without a doubt and did not ask further. Actually, if Qin Yiru had asked further, Yun Jian might have spilled the beans. When Qin Yiru brought Yun Jian, Yun Yi and Xiao Yunju back to Xinjiang town, Zhang Meihua's family had already prepared a banquet. Everyone in the town would treat their distant relatives and neighbors to a meal before the new year. Seeing that Qin Yiru had brought Yun Jian and the rest home, someone immediately spoke to Yun Jian, but the words were directed at Zhang Meihua. Meihua, is she your granddaughter Yun Jian? She's starting a company at such a young age? Huh, that's amazing. This person spoke eloquently, but judging from his tone, he had no intention of praising Yun Jian. Chapter 451. Isn't that so? My Jian is amazing. Zhang Meihua's face was plastered with a wide grin, as she quickly responded to the person. Her tone made it sound like she was close to Yun Jian. Even the way she addressed her had turned into an intimate Jian. Yun Jian did not hear Zhang Meihua's boasting, even if the latter was bragging about herself to others. When Qin Yiru and her were in trouble back then, Zhang Meihua had not been so nice. Back then, Zhang Meihua had acted as if she did not want to acknowledge Qin Yiru as her daughter for the rest of her life. Now that Yun Jian's capabilities were exposed, Zhang Meihua had learned to suck up to her. Yun Jian had never cared about people like her. If Zhang Meihua was not Qin Yiru's biological mother, and Qin Yiru was not a person who valued relationships, she would not have treated Zhang Meihua as her biological mother. To Qin Yiru, no matter how her own mother treated her, she would not ignore Zhang Meihua forever. A person's nature was determined. Qin Yiru was a kind person. Yun Jian could only accept it. Qin Yiru was her mother. In Yun Jian's heart, Qin Yiru was someone who was worth protecting for the rest of her life. Zhang Meihua's family had set up 3 tables of food and wine tonight to entertain their distant relatives and neighbors. This was a custom in Xinjiang town, as well as Longmen City. A few days before the new year, they would use pig's head and various dishes to worship the gods. After the worship, the sumptuous dishes would be used to entertain their relatives and friends to enjoy together. This was a superstition passed down from the older generation. At the same time, it was also a way to keep in touch with distant relatives and neighbors. After all, some distant relatives could no longer be contacted after the older generation passed away. At this moment, the 3 tables of dishes were almost full. Yiru, come sit here. At this time, Zhang Meihua waved at Qin Yiru and signaled for Qin Yiru to bring Yun Jian and the others to sit at the table where the man who said that Yun Jian had founded her own company at such a young age was sitting. The other 2 tables were already full, and only that table had a few empty seats left. In order to express her goodwill to Yun Jian, Zhang Meihua even personally brought over the bowls and chopsticks for Yun Jian and the others. Oh, okay, Mom. Qin Yiru rarely saw Zhang Meihua being so protective of her, so she quickly took the child and sat over. Since Qin Yiru had gone over, Yun Jian naturally wouldn't stand alone. She held Xiao Yunju's hand and sat down next to Yun Yi. The table could seat more than a dozen people, so with the addition of Qin Yiru and the others, it was already full. Zhang Meihua squeezed herself in and purposely squeezed herself next to Yun Jian's seat, acting like she was close to her. Jian, he's your uncle. Your uncle is a high-ranking official in Zhe province. Your uncle praised you just now. He said that you're amazing. Zhang Meihua could not help going over to Yun Jian to introduce the person who praised her just now to Yun Jian once she sat down. The person who praised Yun Jian was Yun Jian's uncle, Qin Yiru's cousin Qin Li. Now that he was in Yun Jian's generation, he was considered a distant relative of Qin Li's. Anyone with a discerning eye could tell what Zhang Meihua had said just now. She was sucking up to Yun Jian, but had pointed out a point in a roundabout way. Qin Li was a high-ranking official in Zhe province. It was already a compliment for someone like him to say that Yun Jian was amazing. Chapter 452. In fact, Qin Li did look down on Yun Jian. It could even be said that Qin Li looked down on Zhang Meihua's family. Qin Li's father and Zhang Meihua were siblings, so Zhang Meihua's generation had plenty of siblings as well. When it was Yun Jian's generation, these people were no longer as close as they used to be. They were considered distant relatives now, but it was hard to say if they could maintain their relationship in the future. Qin Li, on the other hand, was always boasting about his status as a high-ranking official. Especially during the reunion dinner during Chinese New Year, or when relatives gathered like today, it was a time to show off one's status. It was one thing for everyone to sit down and have dinner together. Of course, it was more important to talk about what one had done this year, or how much one's income was. Comparisons were unavoidable, especially those who had a higher income. They would think that they were superior, while those who had a lower income and did not have a high status in society would feel inferior in comparison. Qin Li was the type of person who wanted to show off his status and high income in front of his distant relatives. As for why he looked down on Zhang Meihua's family, it was because in Qin Li's impression of his father's younger sister, Zhang Meihua's generation, there had never been a capable person, unlike his own line of descent. Which one of them did not have excellent grades, get into a good high school or university, and finally get a decent job? In fact, other than Yun Jian, Zhang Meihua and the rest did not seem to notice Qin Li's disdain for Zhang Meihua's family at all, and fawned over Qin Li even more. Yun Jian, on the other hand, ignored Zhang Meihua's words. Zhang Meihua's intention was clear. She wanted her to fawn over Qin Li and suck up to him as well. By doing so, it was like Zhang Meihua was introducing Yun Jian to an important figure like Qin Li. With this, Zhang Meihua thought that Yun Jian would owe her a favor. However, she did not expect Yun Jian to not give her any face. Jian Jian, your uncle is praising you. Aren't you going to say something? Zhang Meihua urged when she saw that Yun Jian did not give her face. As she spoke, Zhang Meihua even winked at Qin Yiru, as if she wanted Qin Yiru to tell Yun Jian to be obedient. However, Qin Yiru did not notice Zhang Meihua's frown. Qin Yiru thought that Zhang Meihua's eyes were hurting. She asked Zhang Meihua in confusion and worry, "Mom, what's wrong with you? Are your eyes hurting?" "It's fine." When Zhang Meihua heard what Qin Yiru said, she was so angry that her breathing quickened. She shouted at Qin Yiru angrily. In such a situation, Zhang Meihua couldn't speak carelessly. However, just when Zhang Meihua thought that Yun Jian wouldn't say a word, Zhang Meihua suddenly stopped talking. Yun Jian's lips curled up slightly as she looked at Qin Li, who was sitting opposite her. Their gazes met, but she was not inferior to him at all. "Thank you for the compliment," Yun Jian replied with a press of her lips. If Qin Li's compliment of Yun Jian just now was extremely hypocritical, then Yun Jian's rebuttal was as distant as it could be. Even Qin Li, who was sitting opposite of Yun Jian, could not help taking a few more glances at Yun Jian when they heard what she said. In spite of it, she was only slightly capable. It was already impressive enough for someone her age to be able to start a small company. Chapter 453. In short, Qin Li did not take Yun Jian seriously at all. Of course, he would not say this in front of everyone present. After a sumptuous dinner, Qin Yiru and Zhang Meihua went to clean up the plates and utensils used for dinner. Since it was Zhang Meihua's family who had invited them, other than Qin Yiru and the other women who were cleaning up the leftover utensils, the rest of them sat on the bench in the yard to brag about their abilities. "Qin Li, you've earned quite a bit this year, haven't you? Haha, you've been promoted twice already. You can catch up to the position of Zhe Province's chief of administration now," someone said to Qin Li with deep envy. Hearing this, Qin Li's pride immediately came out. However, his words were very low-key. "How could that be? I'm still working hard. I don't know how far I can go. This road is getting harder and harder to walk." Yun Jian and the other children of the same age stood on the side and chatted with the adults. It was only when this group of adults started to talk about their children that they started to brag about their children's abilities. Huan is in his 3rd year of high school now. He just took part in a national taekwondo competition not too long ago. Fortunately, he didn't embarrass himself. He more or less won the 3rd prize," Qin Li said. When Qin Li said this, he purposely glanced at his son Qin Huan. There was an indescribable sense of pride in his tone. Winning the 3rd prize in a national taekwondo competition? "Old Qin, it's not that I want to criticize your son, but he's really talented in taekwondo," someone chimed in. After all, in the eyes of the commoners, a child's performance was already impressive if he could win a place in Longmen City or Zhe Province. It was a great honor for Qin Li's son, Qin Huan, to win a prize in a national taekwondo competition. On the other hand, Qin Huan grinned from ear to ear after being praised. Qin Huan was Qin Li's son, and he was 18 this year. Because of his good family background, Qin Huan had always walked in front of other children since he was young. He had been practicing taekwondo since he was young. Today, to be able to achieve such results, it was already enough to show off in front of a group of ignorant relatives and friends. Yun Jian stood at the side. She merely watched the commotion indifferently and remained silent. That was until Qin Li called his son, Qin Huan, over to show everyone some taekwondo. Qin Huan stood arrogantly in front of everyone and practiced a few moves that he usually practiced. In Qin Huan's opinion, it was already very impressive for him to get the 3rd prize in the national competition at such a young age. After Qin Huan finished this taekwondo move, he received applause from everyone present. He even reached out to stroke his short hair, to show off his domineering demeanor. TSK, was that all? Why don't you compete with Yin Jian? She's amazing. At this moment, Qin Finger's mocking voice suddenly rang out. Qin Finger was present, and had been since the beginning. She was the daughter of Yin Jian's uncle in name, Qin Liqian, and this house belonged to Qin Liqian. Qin Finger was not studying during the Lunar New Year, so of course she was present. It was just that she did not sit at the same table as Yin Jian in the beginning, so she did not match up to her boss. In fact, after being intimidated by Yin Jian's hypnosis last time, Qin Finger had grown increasingly disgusted with Yin Jian. Seeing how good Qin Huan's taekwondo moves were, Qin Finger suddenly thought that Yin Jian seemed to know a thing or two too. Chapter 454. Qin Huan was someone who had won the third prize in the National Youth Taekwondo competition. Just based on this, Yin Jian couldn't compare to him. That was why Qin Finger suddenly thought of letting Yin Jian go up and fight with Qin Huan. Moreover, she purposely praised Yin Jian and made Qin Huan think that Yin Jian also practiced taekwondo. Qin Huan was competitive. Qin Finger's motive was to let Qin Huan think that Yin Jian had some ability and stimulate his inner competitive spirit to fight with Yin Jian. It would be best if he could cripple Yin Jian. It would be best if he could disfigure her face. Qin Finger was most jealous of Yin Jian's appearance. As expected, the moment Qin Finger said that Yin Jian was amazing, Qin Huan immediately sized up Yin Jian. Not only Qin Huan, but everyone present turned to look at Yin Jian. Moreover, all of them had a shocked expression on their faces. Yin Jian knew taekwondo? Previously, when they heard Zhang Meihua say that Yin Jian had started her own company, everyone was already shocked. In the end, from Qin Finger's words, he could hear even more misunderstandings. Yin Jian knew taekwondo? She looked so thin and weak, but she actually knew taekwondo? You know taekwondo? Qin Huan, who was still in high spirits, was now standing in front of Yin Jian. He looked at Yin Jian, and at the same time, used his tall and burly figure to look down on Yin Jian. His expression was as if he didn't care that Yin Jian also knew taekwondo. Yin Jian didn't say a word, and was ridiculed for no reason. She crossed her arms and glanced at Qin Finger. There was a sharp and murderous glint in her eyes. Under everyone's gaze, Yin Jian pursed her red lips slightly. Her half-smile, coupled with her exquisite and beautiful face, made people suffocate for a moment. Qin Finger, who was standing at the side, dug her nails into her flesh. What she hated the most was Yin Jian's face. That's right, I do know taekwondo. Yin Jian shrugged, and turned back to look at Qin Finger. Just because Qin Finger could glare at others, did she think that Yin Jian could not glare at others? Then let's have a match, Qin Huan said excitedly. Qin Huan felt that he had just performed a few taekwondo punches in front of everyone, but it still wasn't impressive enough. It had to be like a taekwondo competition. Only by knocking down the opponent would it give people a sense of awe. But Qin Huan had no opponent, so he could only fight. Coincidentally, at this moment Yin Jian said that she knew taekwondo. Hence, Qin Huan immediately came over to request a match. After saying that, Qin Huan felt that he was being rude again. He confidently added to Yin Jian, "Don't worry, I won't hurt you." This sentence proved that Qin Huan completely believed that he would definitely win if he competed with Yin Jian in taekwondo. Come. Upon hearing Qin Huan's words, Yin Jian, who originally didn't want to fight, spoke up. Then, she paused and tilted her head to look at Qin Huan under everyone's gaze. She said in disdain, "I'll say the ugly words first. I won't go easy on you." These words were considered a rebuttal to Qin Huan's arrogant words that said that he would definitely win. But after Qin Huan heard it, he was a little angry. He was the third prize winner of the National Youth Taekwondo competition. But today, he was actually looked down on by a skinny girl. Hence, after Yin Jian said those words, Qin Huan reached out and punched. He rushed towards Yin Jian as fast as he could and muttered, "Then I won't hold back." Qin Huan struck a few standard taekwondo moves, Just as he was about to raise his hand to suppress Yun Jian's arm, suddenly, a pair of hands that were as agile as a snake stretched out simply. Yun Jian held Xiao Yunju's hand and didn't move. One of her hands went around Qin Huan like a snake's body and went straight to his abdomen. Just as he thought that Yun Jian was going to punch him, Yun Jian suddenly kicked him horizontally. Bam! When everyone blinked again, they saw the aggressive Qin Huan being sent sprawling on the floor by Yun Jian in the next second. Chapter 455. After Yun Jian said this, she glared at Qin Huan, who was lying on the ground. She held Xiao Yunju's hand and walked over to Yun Yi's side. Yun Jian didn't use any strength in this move. It wasn't that she looked down on Qin Huan, but if his fancy, complicated and impractical moves were to be used internationally, he would be beaten unconscious countless times. Qin Huan, who was knocked to the ground by Yun Jian, stood up with widened eyes in shock. He stared at Yun Jian in utter shock, as if he could not believe what had just happened. He didn't even know when she made her move. He was already lying on the ground. In contrast to Qin Huan's shock, Qin Li, who was proud of his son and bragging in front of his relatives and friends, was also stunned. All the relatives and friends present were dumbfounded. Everyone sucked in a deep breath, especially those who felt that Yun Jian had founded a company at such a young age, and looked down on Yun Jian because of Zhang Meihua's bragging. At this moment, they couldn't help but size up Yun Jian. Everyone knew that Qin Huan was the third prize winner of the National Youth Taekwondo competition. To be able to win a prize at the National Taekwondo competition was an amazing thing. But just now, a young lady subdued him in one move. That wasn't all. Yun Jian even directly pointed out that Qin Huan's moves were fancy, and that he wasn't even worthy of being her opponent. What an arrogant and powerful young lady. As for the instigator Qin Finger, who was standing at the side, her eyes were about to pop out. How was that possible? How could Yun Jian defeat Qin Huan? Wait! At this moment, Qin Huan suddenly ran over to stop Yun Jian when he saw that she was about to stand to the side with Xiao Yunju. What? Yun Jian raised her brows and smiled. She didn't let go of Xiao Yunju's hand. Xiao Yunju also blinked his black eyes and sized up Qin Huan. He looked left and right at Qin Huan and shook his little head. This person was so ugly that he couldn't even be compared to his brother Ce. Qin Huan, who was being criticized by Xiao Yunju, didn't know what Xiao Yunju was thinking. He looked at Yun Jian with a serious expression. Qin Huan gritted his teeth and said, "How can you defeat me? I wasn't ready just now. I want to compete with you again." When Qin Huan said this, there was a sense of confidence that came from nowhere. Yun Jian's words just now had completely touched his pride as a man. Qin Huan felt that his manly pride had been severely insulted. Therefore, he wanted Yun Jian to compete with him again. "And what you used just now wasn't a taekwondo move. I want to compete with you in taekwondo, not other unorthodox ways." In order to win, Qin Huan continued, "Do you dare to compete with me?" Just now, Yun Jian defeated him in one move. This made Qin Huan feel that he had lost face in front of all his relatives. Therefore, Qin Huan was trying to make up for his embarrassment just now. Moreover, he was trying to convey to the surrounding people that he lost just now, because Yun Jian didn't use taekwondo to fight with him. Although this reason was ridiculous, the surrounding relatives immediately helped Qin Huan. After all, most of the people present thought that boys had a better future than girls. No matter how powerful Yun Jian was, she was just a girl. His future achievements would always be limited. Chapter 456. With Qin Finger's nonsense, Qin Huan became even more confident. Qin Huan suddenly felt that Yun Jian was using unorthodox methods to defeat him. After all, her hand speed was so fast just now, and she wasn't using taekwondo. If it was taekwondo moves, Qin Huan was very confident that he could defeat Yun Jian, because he had learned taekwondo very well, including what moves his opponent would use. He had learned from his coach. At the same time, he also studied what moves his opponent would use, and how he should defend against them. It could be said that Qin Huan was full of confidence within the range of taekwondo moves. Therefore, in order to regain his face, he invited Yun Jian to fight again. He was a national youth taekwondo expert. If it was taekwondo, could she do it? When Yun Jian heard Qin Huan's words, she couldn't help but chuckle. She was already merciful just now. But Qin Huan actually used the excuse that she didn't use taekwondo moves to fight with him. He wanted to fight with her again? Fight again? Yun Jian raised her brows. She smiled slightly, but her smile was full of disdain. That's right. Seeing the surrounding relatives looking at him, Qin Huan wasn't willing to accept the fact that he couldn't even defeat a thin girl like Yun Jian. Therefore Qin Huan nodded fiercely. Seeing Qin Huan like this, Qin Li, who was standing at the side, knew that his son was serious. Huaner, be gentle. Don't hurt the little girl. Qin Li even said to Qin Huan. Dad, of course. Qin Huan nodded confidently, as if he had already won against Yun Jian when he said this. Qin Li and Qin Huan were indeed father and son. It was really unknown where their confidence came from. Yun Jian only smiled contemptuously. She handed Xiao Yunju's hand to her brother, Yunyi, and let Yunyi hold on to Xiao Yunju. Brother, hold on to Xiao Yunju first. With that, Yun Jian walked towards Qin Huan. Her long and narrow eyelashes fluttered up and down, and her delicate and beautiful face was as smooth as water. Her delicate and clean face caused everyone present to be stunned once again. Yun Jian's looks were indeed stunning. Otherwise, Yuan Ingjun wouldn't have been so obsessed with her back then. However, they saw the stunning girl standing in front of a group of people in the open space, in Zhang Meihua's front yard. As she spoke, she blew out a breath of warm air. Reaching out, Yun Jian hooked her finger at Qin Huan. No matter how many times you try, whether it's taekwondo, sanda, or any other martial arts, as long as you can survive one move from me, you win. These words were considered a ruthless slap to Qin Huan's face. Yun Jian meant that he wouldn't even be able to take a single blow from her. Qin Huan spat fiercely, but he didn't have Yun Jian's boldness. He didn't dare to tell Yun Jian that as long as she could withstand one of his moves, she would win. Because from Yun Jian's moves just now, he could tell that she wasn't weak either. Ha! Qin Huan focused all his attention and roared. He clenched his fist and punched Yun Jian with all his might. This punch was much more powerful than the one Qin Huan used just now. Yun Jian's eyes flickered. She didn't move, and watched as Qin Huan clenched his fist and rushed towards her. When Qin Huan's fist was only 10 centimeters away from her, Yun Jian suddenly tilted her head. She squatted down and spun around. In the next second, she actually circled behind Qin Huan in a strange posture. After that, Yun Jian lifted her leg and used an extremely standard taekwondo move to kick Qin Huan from behind to the ground. Everyone was stunned. Yun Jian's speed was simply unparalleled. It was much faster than the first time she beat Qin Huan up. So it turned out that she didn't display her true strength just now. Qin Huan was once again kicked to the ground like a dog gnawing on mud. At this moment, Yun Jian, who was standing behind Qin Huan, stretched out her slender right index finger in front of the astonished crowd. She smiled slightly and said with contempt, "One move." Chapter 457. Yun Jian didn't use any taekwondo moves just now, so Qin Huan found an excuse, and even boasted that she wouldn't be able to win against him without using any taekwondo moves. At this moment, Qin Huan was speechless. In fact, Qin Huan, who was beaten down, was also stunned. He was beaten down by Yun Jian once again. And this time, everyone's eyes were bright. Everyone saw that Yun Jian had indeed used taekwondo moves to defeat him. Qin Huan completely broke down. He had been learning taekwondo since he was young, but now, he couldn't even compare to a girl who was smaller and weaker than him. If this were to spread, where would his face go? Qin Fenger, who originally wanted to use Qin Huan's ability to make Yun Jian suffer, was even more desperate. She gritted her teeth and glared at Yun Jian from the side. All right. It's just a small fight between two children. It's fine if you win or lose. Qin Huan, you're a man. It's normal for you to give in to a girl. Now come and eat an apple. This apple is freshly cut. It's very fresh. At this moment, a plump middle-aged woman, carrying a plate of freshly cut fruit, walked out of the house and spoke as she walked. As she spoke, she called a group of people to eat the small pieces of apple. This middle-aged woman had just seen how Yun Jian subdued Qin Huan in one move. But after the shock, she was very calm. In an instant, this plump middle-aged woman, who was half a head shorter than Yun Jian, thought of the competition between Qin Huan and Yun Jian. It was probably because Qin Huan was Yun Jian's elder brother, according to seniority, that he let Yun Jian win. This was what the middle-aged woman thought, so she directly said it out loud. After all, in this day and age, whether it was the villagers or the people in the city, they were used to elder brothers and sisters giving in to younger brothers and sisters. Sometimes, even if it wasn't the case, they would still say it was the case. Just like how Yun Jian had beaten Qin Huan twice just now, in the eyes of this group of relatives, this plump middle-aged woman's words made them think that Qin Huan let Yun Jian win because he let her win. However, only Qin Huan himself knew how terrifying Yun Jian's strength was just now. After hearing what the middle-aged woman said, the crowd really thought that Qin Huan had gone easy on Yun Jian, which was why Yun Jian won. Yun Jian just sneered at this. It was also at this time that the countryside's idea of favoring boys over girls, and that boys were always better than girls, was completely reflected. Yun Jian had lived at the pinnacle of the world in her previous life. She had never experienced such a feeling before. However, it was undeniable that this feeling was definitely not pleasant. But Yun Jian didn't care about that. Yun Jian didn't say anything. She walked straight to Xiao Yunju and held Xiao Yunju's hand. A hurried voice could be heard. Aya, I'm late. I'm sorry, everyone. Hearing the sound, he looked over and saw a police officer in uniform. It was obvious that he had just gotten off work and hadn't had time to take off his uniform. Seeing the person in police uniform, everyone was in awe out of habit. Yun Jian narrowed her eyes. She was stunned when she saw this familiar face that suddenly appeared. When the other party saw Yun Jian, he was also shocked. Then, this male police officer suddenly pointed at Yun Jian and exclaimed in front of everyone, "Little girl, it's you. Aren't you the Advanced Special Forces soldier under Officer Ge?" Chapter 458. The police officer's name was Zhang Shun. He was a police officer working at Xinjiang Town's police station. He was also the police officer that Yun Jian had met when she visited Lu Fian and her mother at the police station to visit Lu Fian's father. It was just that he didn't think that he would be able to meet her here. Yun Jian was only slightly stunned before she nodded at Zhang Shun. Zhang Shun was actually Qin Li's brother-in-law. He worked at Xinjiang Town's police station and had an easy life. Come to think of it, Zhang Shun and Zhang Meihua were considered distant relatives. Even Zhang Shun was not related to Yun Jian by blood. Zhang Meihua had invited all her family and friends in Xinjiang Town to a banquet, and Zhang Shun was one of the invitees. Unfortunately, Zhang Shun had just gotten off work and could not make it for dinner. Advanced Special Forces? Brother-in-law, what did you say? She is an Advanced Special Forces soldier? Qin Li and the others who were listening suddenly realized this. Qin Li turned to Zhang Shun and asked in horror. The moment everyone heard that Yun Jian was an Advanced Special Forces soldier, they were so shocked that their mouths were agape. Everyone was waiting for Zhang Shun's reply. Zhang Shun obviously did not realize anything as he spoke even more highly of Yun Jian. Hey, are you surprised? When I first found out that she's an Advanced Special Forces soldier, my reaction was similar to yours. But don't think that she's a member of the Advanced Special Forces under Officer Ge, just because she's young. This is an honor that others might not be able to achieve, even if they work hard their entire lives. As he spoke, Zhang Shun took the opportunity to exclaim, "Do you know who Officer Ge is? He's Country Z's military genius. Even the country's general manager would want to get close to him." Ge Yunjian's status in Country Z was very high and Yunjian knew that too. However, from the words of others, he could hear a different flavor. Boom! Everyone present felt like their heads were about to explode. Yunjian actually had such an identity. She was actually an Advanced Special Forces soldier. At that moment, Qin Li was dumbfounded while everyone else was shocked. Qin Huan was completely stunned on the spot. It was no wonder that his skills were not good enough for her. No wonder she said that he wasn't worthy of being her opponent. She was an advanced special forces soldier. With such an identity, Yun Jian was destined to be different from the rest. Qin Huan was only good at taekwondo. Compared to the special forces in the army, he couldn't be compared at all. After all, no matter how good taekwondo was, the chances of actual combat were few and far between. On the other hand, the amount of training for an ordinary special forces soldier was enough to strike fear into the hearts of taekwondo practitioners. There was simply no comparison between the two. Especially those who had been in the army, they would have a murderous aura. Well, what's wrong? Zhang Shun found that after he finished speaking, the people around him were dumbfounded, and he asked in confusion. If Zhang Shun knew that this group of people thought that Qin Huan had lost to Yun Jian on purpose, and that Qin Huan had given in to Yun Jian, he might have laughed out loud on the spot. Yun Jian was an advanced special forces soldier who was personally certified by Gu Junjian. Such a young advanced special forces soldier. Did she need someone like Qin Huan to give in to her? Wasn't this a joke? At that moment, other than Qin Li, Qin Huan, and the rest whose faces were terrifyingly dark, the middle-aged woman who was holding the fruit platter and giving everyone slices of apple slices was also slapped hard in the face. Chapter 459. By the time everyone realized what was going on, Qin Yiru, Zhang Meihua, and the other women had already finished washing the dishes and cleaning the table. They walked to the empty space in front of the courtyard. What's going on? Why are all of you dumbfounded? What are you doing? Zhang Meihua and the other women asked in confusion when they saw the group of people standing in the open space, staring at Yun Jian like they were in a daze. Mom, Yun Jian is an advanced special forces soldier. Do you know about this? Qin Liqian exclaimed and pointed at Yun Jian at Zhang Meihua. Advanced special forces soldier? Zhang Meihua and the other women who came out of the house were stunned as well. Other than Qin Yiru and Yunyi who knew about it, everyone else was dumbfounded. How old was Yun Jian? She's only 15 years old. Advanced special forces soldier? This was a title that had nothing to do with her at all. But now, this title followed closely by her side. Zhang Shun understood the reason when he saw the group's reaction. They did not believe that Yun Jian was an advanced special forces soldier. To convince them that Yun Jian was an advanced special forces soldier, Zhang Shun added, "The documents are here. I saw it with my own eyes. Officer Go issued it himself." Even if the group did not believe it, they had no choice but to believe it. After that, the relatives looked at Yun Jian in a different way. There were a few older students like Yun Jian and Yunyi present. They were the children of their relatives. They had brought them over because it was winter break. However, the young men and women who were about the same age as Yun Jian were silent throughout the meal. Before Yun Jian's appearance, Qin Huan was undoubtedly the most outstanding one in the group. Yun Jian's appearance immediately became the center of attention. From hearing that she had started a company to hearing that she was an advanced special forces soldier, everyone's emotions changed bit by bit. Although Yun Jian's identity as an advanced special forces soldier shocked everyone, it did not last long. Adults always like to brag about their own abilities. Therefore, after bragging about their own children's abilities, they began to talk about who had a car. Look over there. My family's car was bought from New Cruise. Including taxes and a series of documents, it cost about 100,000. A rich man boasted in front of everyone. Now New Cruise had become the spokesperson for the automobile sales company that everyone was talking about. At the same time, Zhang Jifan had further acquired some smaller car sales companies to expand the company's authority. I'm planning to get a new car in a few days, Qin Li chimed in. Perhaps he could only find his sense of honor when it came to money and status. As for Yun Jian, she was more capable than her son, Qin Huan, but she had only started a small company. What use was? Old Qin, I have some dealings with New Cruise's CEO. Why don't I help you ask him out to tell you about the different models of cars in New Cruise? Someone could not help asking Qin Li. The chairman of New Cruise was Yun Jian, while the CEO was Zhang Jifan. Sure. That's a good idea. I was just worried that no one would give me a suggestion on what kind of car to buy. Qin Li pretended to be profound as he spoke. Qin Li clearly believed that not many people in the group could understand what he was saying. He wanted them to not understand, so that he could continue boasting. I suggest you buy a Volkswagen. It's a local brand. New Cruise will have a Volkswagen promotion in a few days. Yun Jian suddenly chimed in. Half of Qin Li's reason for saying that was to show off. In spite of it, Yun Jian's sudden suggestion left him dumbfounded. Chapter 460. It was apparent that Yun Jian's words just now had made the person who was speaking feel a little smug about what she had just said feel repulsed. Especially since Yun Jian was so young. The person felt that Yun Jian was bossing others around and stealing his limelight at such a young age. He was even more displeased with her. Don't spout nonsense when you're still a kid. New Cruise isn't just any company. Besides, I have a friend who works in New Cruise. Of course, my friend would be the first to know if New Cruise is having an event. He'll definitely tell me the moment he gets the news. The person was full of confidence, as he refuted Yun Jian's words with a rather arrogant tone. Moreover, the person's meaning was obvious. His friend worked in New Cruise. Even his friend had never heard of what Yun Jian said. Yun Jian was just spouting nonsense. Yun Jian turned to look at the man who accused her of spouting nonsense. He was about middle-aged with shifty-eyed eyes. Coupled with a face that was not even close to being handsome, he sent chills down one's spine, just by looking at him. What was worse was that this person had red pustules on his face. He looked like he was not satisfied with his desires. Yun Jian glared at him, and did not say anything else. Her words were directed at Qin Li, not this man who looked like he was not satisfied with his desires. Of course, it was not her business whether Qin Li listened to her or not. She was merely giving him a piece of advice. Qin Li was obviously stunned as well. However, compared to this shifty-eyed man, who looked like he was not satisfied with his desires, Qin Li's gaze had a deeper depth to it. Then they went on with their own words. Yun Jian, who was standing far away, could still hear the man who looked like he was complaining about her to the people around him. Say, even though she's in the advanced special forces at such a young age, she shouldn't think that she's invincible. What kind of company is New Cruise? It's a famous company in the country. She's just a little girl. Do you think she can reach into New Cruise? The dissatisfied man deliberately spoke loudly, as if he wanted everyone present to hear him reprimand Yun Jian, so that he could embarrass her. At this moment, Qin Yiru was also feeling rather awkward. Zhang Meihua opened her mouth. If not for Yun Jian's silence, Zhang Meihua would have revealed Yun Jian's identity as New Cruise's director. However, Yun Jian didn't say anything, and Zhang Meihua didn't dare to say anything. She was still waiting for Yun Jian to take care of her when she was old. How could he offend her so quickly? Yun Jian and her brother, Yun Yi, stood together. From time to time, she would tease Xiao Yunju, feeling very comfortable. It was as if what had just happened had never happened. Soon, the last trace of the golden sunset on the horizon had also disappeared. The sky was completely dark. The crowd had yet to disperse. Today was New Year's Eve, and every family was staying up late. The night of staying up late was long, so the adults had already set up the table and started playing mahjong at Zhang Meihua's house. The children, on the other hand, were following the women to set off the small firecrackers they bought from the small shop outside their house. Screech! Just then, the sound of a speeding motor was heard. The roar of a sports car resounded through Xinjiang town. What's that sound? Someone was surprised. What could be so loud? Isn't that the roar of a sports car? Looks like it's a sports car. Let's go, let's stand outside and take a look. The man with a face full of lust hurriedly pulled everyone outside. Chapter 461. These days, the number of cars in town could be counted with one hand. A high-class car like a sports car was even rarer. Therefore, when they heard the sound of a sports car, everyone ran out, wanting to see what the legendary sports car looked like. Seeing the black Lamborghini slowly drive into the corridor of the courtyard, No one was surprised. After all, it was normal for cars to pass through the aisles in front of their houses. I wonder which family in town this car belongs to? This car. I think it's a Lamborghini. This kind of car. The price is no less than $1 million. The man with the dissatisfied face was called Zhu Jia. At this time, Zhu Jia was pointing at the Lamborghini slowly driving into the courtyard, arrogantly speaking to the people around him. As he spoke, Zhu Jia couldn't help but sigh. This kind of car, if I could touch it in my life, it would be great. Hearing these words directly, outsiders would really think that Zhu Jia was a very humble person. However, those who knew him well understood that Zhu Jia's words meant that even people like him, who knew influential people and had a good family background, couldn't touch this high-class car. His group of poor relatives couldn't even think about it. Just as everyone was staring at the black Lamborghini passing through the aisles in the courtyard and was about to drive directly past Zhang Meihua's house, the car suddenly stopped. Huh? Zhu Jia let out a word of surprise. Under everyone's gaze, the door of the Lamborghini slowly opened, and a pair of slender legs were the first to appear. Then, a relatively young man came out from the driver's seat. The man was about 18 or 19 years old. He was very young, but he had a strong aura as soon as he appeared. He had a head of black hair and a fair and handsome face, which made all the women present blush. Qin Fenger had never seen such a handsome man. She thought that she had dated many boys, but in the end, they all parted on bad terms. Even her boyfriend, who was once called the most handsome boy in school, wasn't as handsome as this man in front of her. Qin Fenger felt her heart thumping wildly. Did this man see me and stop the car? Zhu Jia couldn't help but look at the man who suddenly appeared with admiration, and couldn't help but twitch the corner of his mouth. Hello, little brother. Are you looking for directions? Zhu Jia had always been polite to rich and powerful people. When he saw Ci stop after getting out of the car, he thought that Ci was a foreigner. Now that it was the new year, there were many outsiders who went back to their hometown to give gifts to their relatives. Hence, Zhu Jia ran over, thinking himself clever, and volunteered to lead the way for CE. F***ck off, Ce uttered softly, hating people like Zhu Jia who sucked up to him as well. Ce told Zhu Jia to get lost. However, Zhu Jia was very perceptive. Even though he saw Ci's extreme reaction, he wasn't angry. Instead, he stood aside with a smile. Zhu Jia didn't dare to say much about the slander of the rich. Ce drove a Lamborghini, so his family was naturally wealthy. Zhu Jia expressed that he would never provoke such a person in his life. However, just as everyone was waiting suspiciously for Ce to guess his next move, Ce suddenly raised his slender legs and walked in front of Yunjian. I'm back. Ce's red lips curved. He said the most frightening thing in the world in a calm tone. Chapter 462. Only Yun-Yi, Qin Yiru, and Xiao Yinju knew Ce. However, Ce walked straight to Yunjian. It was as if Yunjian was the only person in his deep eyes. Yes, she replied calmly to Ce. Yunjian wasn't good at expressing her emotions, but her slightly raised eyebrows proved that she was excited. Ce Gij. Xiao Yunju took the opportunity to run from Yunjian to Ce. Xiao Yunju was becoming more and more dependent on Ce. Every time he saw Ce, it was as if he had seen a delicious candy. He didn't even want his own sister, and directly ran into Ce's arms. He was like a treasure hunter. Yunjian, Ce, and Xiao Yunju's daily interactions stunned everyone present. They didn't hear wrongly. Zhu Jia was just bragging about the value of this Lamborghini. It definitely wasn't less than 1 million yuan. How could a person who could take out 1 million yuan to buy a car be poor? It had to be known that in 1998, things were cheaper, and the monthly income of ordinary people wasn't high. At that time, if a person's monthly income was more than 1,000 yuan, it was already considered a high income. As for people who could spend 1 million yuan to buy a luxury car, it could be said that there was no such person. Most importantly, the man driving this car was actually so familiar with Yunjian. Yunjian, Ce, and Xiao Yunju stood together like a family. Everyone present was stupefied. As for Zhu Jia, who had just spoken rudely to Yunjian, He was so ashamed that he was speechless. He didn't even dare to appear in front of Yunjian and the others. Think about how he had just insulted Yunjian. That tone. To be honest, Zhu Jie had never thought about how successful Yunjian would be in the future. Even if she was capable, she was just a girl. There were a lot of things that minors were limited in doing. In Zhu Jie's mind, Yunjian was just a girl. How capable could she be in the future? However, when Zhu Jie ran to Ce to beg, he suddenly realized that Ce actually knew Yunjian. It was Zhu Jie's first time experiencing something so embarrassing. His expression darkened instantly. However, Zhu Jie didn't say anything else. "Hey, you're here? There's still a stool left. Take a seat and rest." Qin Yiru walked over with a smile, as she called out to Ce affectionately. Then Qin Yiru asked Ce worriedly, "Hey, have you had dinner?" Ce was holding Xiao Yunju's hand. He had rushed all the way back from an Hun group, because he had promised Yunjian to come back and celebrate Chinese New Year with her. He had not rested for even a second on the way back, so of course he hadn't eaten dinner. Ce's hair fluttered as he shook his head at Qin Yiru. "No, you child. Why didn't you tell me you were coming over? You haven't even learned how to take care of yourself. Fine, fine. Auntie will make you some noodles. You can't starve on an empty stomach. You'll get stomach problems if you go hungry for too long." Qin Yiru reprimanded Ce like an elder reprimanding a junior, before turning to make noodles for Ce. Ce's heart was warmed. The heartwarming scene between Ce, Yunjian, and the others took on a different meaning in Qin Fenger's eyes as her envy and jealousy intensified. You're tuning in to the Dreamy Chapters YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support. And don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.